monster, you become the prey. 'Cause nothing is sacred, and no one is safe. We're in the wild now. We're in the wild. We're in the wild. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We're in the wild. Running for cover. Ain't got a prayer. Scream at the top of your lungs, but no one can hear. Nothing you imagine, more than you could dare. You know what is coming, 'cause you feel it in the air. Nothing here is sacred, no one's ever safe. We're in the wild now. We're in the wild. We're in the wild. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We're in the wild. How far can darkness dress in? We'll have to fight to feel again. Whoever thought it'd be like this? We're on the outside looking in. We're in the wild now. We're in the wild now. We're in the wild. We're in the wild. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We're in the wild.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. We are also on other places like Rumble, where you should definitely follow us. Alongside me is my co-host, Fox Trevize. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. It's been it's a nice week, nice day.
Do you love the illusion, like we just started talking just now, and that there wasn't like a whole bunch of pre-show conversations?
Yes, I
You think-
do.
you
It's
think
like I'm talking to a whole new person.
Yeah, do you think they're ever going to catch on?
I don't think so. I think that they think that we only talk to each other for the 2 to 3 hours that we're on the show. And
Exactly.
between that, it's nothing. We just do all of this cold, because obviously, if we didn't do this cold, if we just if we spent hours and hours writing notes and doing research, obviously the show would be much better. So it's pretty obvious.
Right. And
Pretty
why would we do research and make notes when you have people like Tim Pool who are infinitely more successful than us?
Yeah,
and he does none.
Yeah, I think the only thing between us and 1.5 million subs and millions of dollars a month from ad revenue, I think the only thing standing between us is the fact that we do research every week.
And we also don't routinely make companies that not only fail, but also steal lots and lots of money.
Yeah, and we're also not 1%ers pretending like we're not.
Right.
The only thing standing between us and success is lots and lots of money.
Yeah, lots of land, money, chickens, and then hired help.
Yes, hired somebody to take care of the chicken.
That is the only small list of things that makes us different from Tim Pool.
Yes. The alternative would be to get some kind of foreign terrorist group, like I don't know, like the guys that committed the Armenian genocide to support your organization, and then you can name it after them.
Yeah, is there any good genocides we could name our channel after? I mean,
I
that
don't know.
really has been successful for other channels.
Yeah, the Young Holocaust just doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, Hitler Youth has already been used.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just name our show after a group of mass murderers.
Anyway, so let's get into our show.
Is there still a show after this? I mean, did we just get kicked off of every platform?
Hopefully not. So go ahead and hit that live button, and let's get started.
Right.
So, what?
I don't know. I was just agreeing with you.
We weren't live, right?
Yeah, we're
Okay, cool.
I just turned us live now, so welcome
Cool,
to the
cool.
Direwolf Show.
Well, Wolfpack, thank you very much. We got to get a head start on the show. Thank you very much for everyone who makes the show possible. Among them are Kaylet, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, who is female, by the way, the White Lion, the Timberwolf, the White Wolf, and also
Direwolf Media,
Lucas.
brought to you by wolves.
I'm constantly reminded how many people with Wolf in the name follow this channel. I can't imagine why.
Yeah, could you imagine just being that basic? Is
Who would put Wolf in their name and their channel?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to our first story.
Okay.
We're professionals.
Well, our first story is well, it was a comedy, but now it's apparently a horror. Kind of a just omnibus of things that the our quote unquote elected officials, some of them, were saying over the last week, because one of the hallmarks of senility, which all of our elected officials are senile now. One of the hallmarks of senility is a lack of self-awareness. Coincidentally, one of the hallmarks of a decadent ruling class is also a lack of self-awareness. So when those two phenomenons intersect, we get things like what Nancy Pelosi did this week. Let's watch.
I got this message this morning from Bono. And most of us, we're always, whether we're in Ireland or here, whatever it is, Bono has been a very Irish part of our lives. And he said this. He said, "Oh, St. Patrick, he drove out the snakes with his prayers, but that's not all it takes. For the smoke symbolizes an evil that arises and hides in your heart as it breaks. And the evil risen from the darkness that lives in some men, but in sorrow and fear, that's when saints can appear, to drive out those old snakes once again. And they struggle for us to be free from the psycho in this human family. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine, and St. Patrick's name is now Zelensky."
So, key points. I did not know that Bono was Irish. I thought that he was just a tax cheat and possibly a pedophile.
I just Googled it after you said that, and to just confirm, I didn't know that.
Is Bono not been a part of your Irish life, Dyer?
No, that is the dichotomy, right? As you're either in Ireland or not.
Yes. Yes, yes, the Irish and the not Irish are the some people are Irish and the rest of them are not. So, what was that poem that Dyer, was that did that speak to you?
I thought it was kind of.
Are you ready to go die in Ukraine for Bono now? Did that inspire you to go give your life?
If I were Catholic, I'd probably consider it kind of sacrilegious to say that Zelensky was like a saint.
Well, and I mean, geez, so lack of self-awareness. First off, who cares about Bono? Nobody cares about Bono.
Right.
But also just this whole a lot of the meme kind of has been the last few weeks has been, well, the Democrats want, they're sainting Zelensky saying, "Oh, he's this great, honorable, venerable man," which I'm sure he is, but elevating the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian state to this like level of sanctity that must be defended and preserved.
And if you questioned it, you'll be canceled for
yeah,
sure.
They're a sacred democracy, and Zelensky is the saint of that sacred democracy. And so it's just a lack of self-awareness that's already the meme, is that the Democrats are elevating this to some kind of like religious battle and trying to get us into this war. And then Nancy's just going, yes, this is religious. We've created a saint out of him.
So let me get this straight. The Democrats are saying that Zelensky, the guy who was totally fine with dangerous pathogens being stored within and studied within his country, and made no attempt to remove them before the invasion from Russia that he knew was coming, the same Zelensky that was telling the global community and his people that Russia's not going to attack. Stop! Don't overreact.
Well, and also he didn't really help out Trump when the U.S. media and the worldwide media, after Trump was like, hey, I think the previous administration was doing some dirty dealings in Ukraine. I'd like to get to the bottom of that. And then instead of helping him, Zelensky just stood by and watched him get impeached.
Yeah. Zelensky, who could have done something to prevent the stealing of an election by just simply speaking the truth, decided to refrain from doing that because it would have been politically damaging for him.
Yeah, I mean, he had no problem calling up Congress this week. I don't know if you saw that, but he called up Congress this week and spoke on a video call asking for the U.S. to essentially engage in nuclear war with Russia. He didn't exactly ask it like that. He just asked for a no-fly zone, but a no-fly zone equals nuclear war with Russia. And so he had no problem calling into Congress and asking for us to engage in nuclear warfare, for us to just throw away the last 60 years of NATO. The entire point of NATO and the position of the U.S. in the world since World War II was to prevent war with Russia and the Soviet Union and whoever was occupying that territory at the time. And Zelensky's like, yeah, I'm just going to ask you, can you throw away all of that attempt at, just throw away the last 60 to 70 years of preserving world peace, and please, for really no purpose at all, give us a no-fly zone that will engage in a nuclear war and essentially just ruin all of that attempts at peace that you've been making. Just let us do that. He's willing to call Congress and ask for that, but he's not willing to call Congress and say, hey, I would like to testify that Trump was not wrong and that the Biden administration, or the previous Obama administration with Vice President Biden, they were doing dirty dealings in Ukraine, and I would like to get to the bottom of that with my good friend President Trump. He could have done that, and if he had done that, what's funny is if he had made that phone call 3 years ago, he probably would have had to call Congress today and ask for a no-fly zone.
Okay, and there is a longer list if we wanted to go through and say, here's our things that Zelensky himself or the country of Ukraine has done wrong. We could make a list for you, but really that's distraction of the point. The point isn't, are they flawless? The point is, should they be considered as saints? And no, they are not perfect. I support their defending their lives against the Russians, right? But they're trying to deify Zelensky and trying to glorify Ukraine as being, perfect, when that is not the case. And it is kind of in the why it's a problem is because it's not just giving glory to Ukraine and giving glory to Zelensky. The part of this glorification is making it not permissible to criticize, not permissible to scrutinize, and that's the problem.
Well, I think that's one of the problems. I think the other problem is that poem, on a technical level, was just shit.
Horrible.
The whole way through. There was no redeeming qualities whatsoever about that poem.
I thought there was a translatable skill between writing songs and writing in general.
I mean, can you name a Bono song?
No.
I don't even know what band he was in. Now, mind you, my pop culture is not very good, but I don't know. I don't know anything about Bono other than he has this gigantic tax laundry organization that steals money from stupid people and then doesn't do anything with it. He's essentially just a giant tax cheat. And then
He was in U2,
ooh, how'd that work out for him?
Passengers, All-Star Tribute, and a couple other no-name bands.
Well, that poem, I've seen bananas duct taped to a white wall that were better than that poem.
That's a great reference, by the way. I hope everyone else got it.
Yeah.
You remember the guy walking up and taking the banana off the wall and eating it?
Yes.
That was great.
That was much more artistically worthy than the banana. Just as Nancy eating that poem would have been much more artistic. Alrighty, well, Nancy. I mean, we know Nancy. She's this was at some kind of I don't even know what it was. Some kind of like St. Patrick's Day dinner or breakfast or something. I don't know. The only thing that we do know for sure is that there was a lot of Irish coffee. Clearly, you can see Nancy's 3 sheets to the wind there. But she wasn't the only one. Joe Biden, who notable orator Joe Biden, who never misspeaks or stutters. He decided
he never fucks anything up.
Never. He also decided to make a statement at this Irish something, and here it is.
Father, before I begin, bless me, Father, for I'm about to sin. Well, I just want you to know, I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter. Okay?
All right, so I didn't even know that being stupid was an Irish stereotype, to be honest. Did you know that?
No.
So apparently that's an Irish stereotype. I don't know. So the Daily Wire actually misreported that he said Joe Biden's he's talking about Joe Biden's dad. And the Daily Wire misreported that the name he said was actually Jill Biden's grandfather. And they're half right, half not right. But they're mostly not right. So the first name matches Jill's father. However, the last name matches Jill's grandfather, who changed his name when he moved to America from Ireland. So Jill's dad would have had the new last name. He never would have had the old last name. So I don't know if that was like a family thing or something like that, but Daily Wire misreported that, and they suckered me in. So if you heard that on the Daily Wire this week, they were wrong. Fox fact-checked it.
Biden comes from an era where not only was it in vogue to be racist against black people and other not white people, but also was in vogue to be racist against the Irish.
Apparently.
No, it was. That was a common group that was treated differently. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know that being Irish was, Irish being stupid was a stereotype, but Joe might be onto something. You'd have to be pretty bad to write you'd have to be pretty stupid to write a poem as bad as Bono did. So I didn't know that being Irish was a stereotype. Apparently Bono fits that.
We know at least 2 Irish people out of all Irish people are stupid. So we need more of a data set, I think.
Yeah. So it wasn't just on St. Patrick's Day that they our elected elites were making a fool of themselves. Joe likes to do that every day. And so here he is at another event this week. Well, I'm not sure what he's trying to say. We'll let you decide.
But there's been a little change in the arrangement of who's on the stage because of the First Lady's husband contracting COVID. But
all right, so this is like that game where it's like the first, second cousin once removed type of a thing. So the First Lady's husband. So who's the First Lady, Dyer?
That's his wife.
Okay, so who would the First Lady's husband be?
That'd be him.
Okay, so is he saying that he has COVID? Let's find out.
Contracting COVID, but look at this room and what you see. Pardon? That's right. She's fine. It's me.
Oh my God.
That's not together.
Yeah,
Second
we're aware.
lady, the first gentleman. How about that?
All right, so who's the first gentleman, Dyer?
Well, you wouldn't use that phrase because it would refer to if you had a female president and her husband.
In theory, who would be the first gentleman?
Him?
I guess.
If his wife was in charge
Yes.
of the country.
So, if you guys didn't understand, because nobody understand, Joe Biden was trying to say that Kamala Harris's husband has COVID.
Well, his I'm assuming wife, some female voice in the background said second husband, right?
Yes.
So why didn't he just say that? The correct answer was said aloud.
I have no idea. I have no idea, Dyer. If I
His
knew.
brain's not functioning.
If I knew.
He's
So,
not processing information. He only just reads what's on a teleprompter.
so Joe Biden doesn't know who he is. Clearly. I mean, that's been like the meme for a while, too, is Joe Biden literally doesn't know who he is.
He keeps calling other people the president and keeps referring to himself being in Congress.
Yes. So,
Like, we're not surprised. He doesn't know where he is. Like 9 times out of 10, when he tries to state the current location he's in, he's wrong.
yeah. So Joe Biden doesn't just know, or doesn't just not know who he is. He also doesn't know who the cabinet secretaries he selected are. Here he is. Well, again, it's hard to say that he's doing something here. Here's a video of him not doing something again.
Former Governor Jennifer Granholm, the Energy Department. I often kid her, and I wasn't kidding early on when I was seeking the nomination. Had she been born in America, she'd be standing here and I'd be sitting there. She was the former governor of the state of Michigan. Michigan, wrong. She was a former state. She was a governor. The former.
She was the governor of, Michigan, not Michigan. Cheering on a shove of pressure. So you're telling me that he doesn't even remember the qualifications for his cabinet secretaries that he chose like a year ago?
You're wrong. It's not that he doesn't remember them. He never knew.
Well, exactly, and that's the point, right? So that's why now you can clearly see why the Biden administration, their new tact for picking positions is to base it off of skin color. Because at least if you base it off of skin color, Joe Biden doesn't have to memorize why they're qualified. He can just look at them and yell, black!
And that's their qualification
You
right
ain't
there.
black.
They are
Yeah.
their skin color. So, you could. This is for like one speech, right? Or was it 2 speeches that you were
Well,
able
no,
to get?
this was number 3 for the day. We've got more for other segments later
No,
on.
this is 3 segments from. Is it 2 speeches or the same speech?
Yeah, 3 segments from 2 speeches, all within the last 5 days.
We could do an entire show just on following him for 1 week on all the different speeches, the very few speeches he gives, but breaking down every single speech has gaffes, serious gaffes where he can't remember what is going on, but we can't devote an entire show to that. So we're just going to sprinkle them throughout the stories
Yeah.
on other topics.
But yeah, no, that's why they're just choosing off of skin color now. So when the next Supreme Court nominee comes up and they ask him, can you introduce her? He'll be like, this is so and so, and either she's black or
And you ain't black.
so it's one of those. It's either black or not black, and that's all you need to know for their qualifications. There's some other like nuanced categories there, like.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Exactly. So there's just a few simple categories that Biden can do, but he can't memorize people's qualifications or their resumes or anything like that. If he were to know how unqualified some of these people are, he might have some questions. What's funny too is to that point, it shouldn't be hard to memorize some of the resumes for these people. They're awfully short.
Yeah. Some of the judges that he's appointing have never actually been judges.
Correct. Alrighty. Well, for our next story here is somebody who's also making a absolute fool of themselves, and that would be Jussie Smollett. Yes.
Why is he in the news again?
Well, so CNN's kind of ruining the headline here, or that they're jumping ahead here. Don't want to bury the lead. Jussie is out of jail. So yeah. So if Jussie's attacker is out of jail. Sorry. So if you tuned in last week, Dyer and I were very excited to tell you that Jussie Smollett's attacker was finally brought to justice after a Chicago court sentenced him to 150 days in Cook County Jail.
And I remind you, I told you he was not going to serve those days.
Yes. It was indeed very shocking to see someone with the types of connections that just Juicy has actually being held accountable for anything, much less being held accountable for faking a hate crime.
Yeah. After the sentencing, it was widely believed that he would be in jail for only 75 to 150 days. I estimated fewer, and I was right, but I did not guess 6 days. So that was assuming good behavior. I'm guessing insanity is now in the category of good behavior. So initial reports from earlier in the week were scattered. Some saying he was released into general pop, some saying he was locked in solitary, and perhaps the most believable, he was 5 points in a 5-point restraint to a bed in a psych ward.
Yes, that one's the most believable.
Most believable.
But
he wouldn't stop beating himself up.
Exactly. By Wednesday, just 6 days into his 150-day sentence, Juicy's attacker was set free and is now roaming the streets of Chicago, presumably searching for another Subway sandwich. How
They
terrifying.
said that they really believed he was showing remorse because he continually was beating himself up about it. Sorry.
God.
The release of Smollett's attacker came after an appeals court granted an emergency motion to stay his jail time until his case could make it through appeals. The reason being that his sentence would be completed long before the appeals process was finished. Maybe if the ridiculous 150 days wasn't the amount of time he was given and he was actually given years, that wouldn't be a problem. So, right or wrong, that's how the appeals work.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of disagreement that, if you're going to appeal your case or if you're waiting for your trial, that you shouldn't be held in prison or jail, which there's some arguments for that. But as of right now, that's just how the justice system works, whether it's...
So the standard is you should be kept in jail if you are a danger to society. I think he's only a danger to himself.
I think his actions were pretty devastating to society's just well-being.
Right. Oh, no, I get that. But they mean physical, are you going to kill someone type danger.
I don't know. I mean, it's a leftist standard that non-physical things are, physically violent. So
I tell you, if you go by the leftist standard, then he should still be in jail. But that's not the legal standard. Hopefully, he doesn't become it.
Yeah. So either way, not much to this story, but Juicy is out. The juice is loose. I can't wait to see him team up with OJ and create a TV series looking for the real hate crime perpetrator. I think that's going to be fun. Any thoughts on that, Dyer?
Sorry, I was typing something.
You really just left me hanging.
Yep, I totally
just like Jesse left himself hanging.
Sorry, I lost track of what you were saying. I apologize.
Just nod your head in agreement.
Okay, I'm nodding, but that's not going to help the audience very much.
Alrighty. Well,
this next story is a great one.
Yes.
And I will definitely listen to you when you're talking.
Yes. Oh, don't worry. I gave you a lot to read.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. There's just an entire page highlighted in yellow, which is actually it's more than a page. And
yellow God.
Yellow is Dyer's color. So
you call me yellow?
Yes. Alrighty. So, the laptop from hell. Alrighty. So, if there's one thing that Hunter Biden likes more than crack, it's leaving incriminating laptops everywhere he goes. It's almost like a little breadcrumb trail, or maybe like a crack pipe trail. I don't know. Hunter, a crackhead.
It's fact.
Yes, Hunter, a crackhead, whose dad was recently pushing to use 30 million taxpayer dollars to buy crack pipes. I think that's relevant context, don't you?
Yes.
So Hunter, a crackhead, whose dad recently pushed to use 30 million taxpayer dollars to buy crack pipes,
also in other countries.
Yes, has been a constant source of trouble for former Vice President Joe Biden. Or at least he would have been a source of trouble if we were allowed to talk about it without being designated as Russian operatives by the CIA, FBI, NSA, and every other legacy news media outlet. It would have been a source of trouble if we were allowed to talk about it at all.
Yeah, it's really funny and not at all galling that the people who actually worked with Russian agents to, steal an election are calling us Russian agents for, looking at evidence of things that happened. So the laptops themselves, we have covered multiple times and in great detail over the last 2 years. We have no need in re-explaining why the information found on laptops is authentic. It is proven. We and others have already done that multiple times. But just a quick recap, here's a list of just a few of the incriminating things found on the laptops. Number 1, proof that Biden was illegally taking 10% stake in a bribe payment from a Chinese energy company. Proven. Corroborated multiple ways. Second, proof that Biden was promising favorable U.S. policy to Mexican energy companies in exchange for money. Selling influence, selling his office for personal gain and for his family. Third was proof that Biden was promising favorable U.S. policy to Chinese energy companies in exchange for a load of no interest, no payback loans. Also, proof that Biden was promising favorable U.S. policy to Ukraine energy companies in exchange for money. Also, his son being paid by said company.
I'm noticing a trend here, Dyer. Is there a trend in Joe? Why did this switch over to seagulls? Is there a trend in the type of corruption that Joe Biden has been?
Yes, it is
engaged in.
You might even call it Biden Inc.
Yes,
his business is the selling of his office. So proof that next one is proof that John Kerry's was involved his son. John Kerry's son was involved in the same activity through his own son. Also, in the laptop, we found that there's proof that Biden used military aircraft, Air Force Two, to fly himself and Hunter to a meeting with foreign officials for the purpose of making corrupt deals, using government assets for personal gain. Also a no-no. Also, there was proof that Joe and Hunter shared at least one bank account where money from Hunter's dealings would be made available to Joe. So their dirty dealings of Hunter are irreparably connected to Joe. Next, we have proof that Beau Biden, before he didn't die of injuries related to his military service, was also involved in these deals. Oh no, he wasn't perfect. Circumstances. Also, there was circumstantial evidence that Hunter did cocaine with Melania Obama.
Malia.
Sorry, Malia. Wow. I don't know why I read that Melania. And that was Obama. So with the Obama's daughter, right?
Yes.
So Hunter was doing cocaine, possibly circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, there was pictures on Hunter's laptop of cutting crack lines with a credit card, and the credit card had the name Malia Obama on it. So whether he stole her credit card or he was doing cocaine with her, there's at least circumstantial evidence that somebody should look into that.
Yeah, something bad is definitely happening there regardless. So then there was circumstantial evidence that Hunter had sex with a minor, and also circumstantial evidence that Hunter might be a pedophile. Yes. And also proof that Hunter likes M&Ms.
Yes.
Also that he smoked Parmesan.
Yes. No, that wasn't in the laptop.
I know.
He just said that on TV.
I just want to point it out every time we talk about him.
All right. Well, the big update this week is so again, that was by no means a comprehensive list. It was just a few of the things that were shown and proven in those laptops that we have covered again multiple times on this show for hours at a time, sometimes over the last 2 years. So The big update this week is that it's all finally real. That's right, thanks to the New York Times, who spent 2 years claiming that it was literally treason, a death penalty offense, to even consider the laptops as anything other than a Russian fabrication. The New York Times, has finally admitted that the laptops are probably authentic.
Well, was this based on additional new information?
No!
Oh, no!
Actually, it's in response to anonymous sources. So, in response to the New York Times piece, the New York Post, who's not the Times, the New York Post is the outlet that originally broke the laptop story. The New York Post wrote in response an op-ed that started with, quote, "Forgive the profanity, but you have got to be s-ting me," shitting us. That was here. So that was obviously an opinion piece. But the New York Post is a little bit pissed that the New York Times finally, as I start off here, after more than a year, they finally have decided that Hunter's business dealings and woes are worthy of a story. And then deep in the piece, in passing, it finally notes that the Hunter Biden laptop is legitimate. So it wasn't even the story wasn't even about the laptop. It just happened to admit it deep in this other story that was just generally about Hunter's corruption. Well, the way that we know about Hunter's corruption is largely proven through the laptops. I mean, it was evident through just watching what he's been doing the last 10 years. But a lot of that was proven and corroborated by the laptop. It would have been nice if, the New York Times had investigated it before the election.
Does that mean that the New York Post gets to have their account unblocked, their post unremoved? I mean, is there going to be some sort of something happened to Twitter or Facebook for having removed the post? Like this is the problem with making them the arbiters of what was true and was not true, because they end up blocking true information and calling it Russian disinformation.
It's almost like it's American disinformation.
Yeah. It almost seems like there's a massive problem where you decide to let one group or a few people determine what is the truth and ban everything else, because what happens when those people are wrong?
Certainly nothing bad, Dyer.
Yeah, exactly.
What, are you a Russian plant too? Come on.
Exactly.
Come on,
I would
man.
not dare suggest we should have freedom of speech. That'd be, wrong. Anyway, so the Times article bravely even mentioned the laptop, or barely even mentioned the laptop or any of the implications that we listed. But buried deep in the article, this paragraph, quote, "People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer, and others about Burisma and other foreign business activities, like China and Mexico. Those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache are authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation." Oh, wow.
So those emails have been publicly available for more than a year and a half, and now multiple people familiar and multiple people familiar with those emails, including, I would say most notably, Tony Bobulinski, who we covered multiple times on the show, they've already publicly confirmed that the emails were authentic. So people
were interviewed by Fox News.
Yeah, so these emails have been publicly available for over a year and a half, and people who are obviously familiar with them have already authenticated them. But unless it's an unnamed Times source, and apparently it doesn't count. So, it doesn't matter that Tony Bobulinski, who's a named, publicly available source and has is publicly known to have a relationship with Hunter and Joe. And then he says, yeah, these are authentic. He's on the emails and shows that they're authentic. And that's not good enough. And Times goes and gets an unnamed source to corroborate it. And all of a sudden it's news. The hell?
I don't care if you excuse my profanity. You're a fucking year late and $1 short, buddy. Jeez. Why the Times is suddenly coming out with this now is anyone's guess, but the consequences of how things are, quote, not true until the left-wing state media outlets confirm it has very real consequences. Letting them determine what is real and what is not real is the problem. New York Post was banned from Twitter right before the 2020 election. The multiple polls and multiple polls have shown that a voter base that was aware of the laptop would not have elected Biden. And it's not a question of whether or not they swayed the election. They did. A very few people in charge of the media and in charge of social media companies, those small number of people colluded to change the election, and they did it successfully just by limiting what information you were allowed to see. And let's not forget that Trump's interview was 60 Minutes just before the 2020 election.
It's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about,
Well, because it can't be verified.
you want to talk
I'm
about
telling you.
insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me,
We
they found the
cannot
laptop. Leslie,
It can't be
Leslie,
verified.
what can't be verified?
The laptop,
Why do you say that?
Because
Even the
it's
family
verified.
hasn't, the family on the laptop, he's gone into hiding. For 5 days, he's gone into hiding.
he's preparing for your debate.
Oh, it's taken him 5 days to prepare? I doubt it. I doubt it.
So there you go, 60 Minutes interview. Well, we can't confirm the laptop. It's unprovable. It's unconfirmed. When it very clearly was by multiple sources, just not the New York Times. So it's not until the New York Times comes out with their unnamed source that all of a sudden it's fine. But you can see right here, the media going after Trump's obviously now we know. Well, we knew right away, but we now know, I guess the rest of the left now knows, oh, Trump wasn't lying about this. Do you think that they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe we'll give Trump a break now because he apparently he wasn't lying about this, and this was a big deal. This likely would have lost Joe the election. The people don't like corrupt officials. The left apparently does, but most people don't. And if they would only know about it, that would go a long way towards Joe having not won the election, unfortunately.
It's not like when the story came out that there wasn't enough evidence provided for people to, verify it. They just didn't want to cover it so they could help Biden win. Part of that shadowy cabal of government leaders, business leaders, and government leaders working together to fortify the election, right?
Yes. Very fortified.
So, moving on.
Yeah. So as a follow-up to their story, the New York Post kind of reminded everybody about a letter, an open letter that was sent out by over 50 intelligence, quote-unquote, experts who put out an open letter around election time, around 2020 election, stating that the laptop was Russian disinformation. So as a follow-up, the Post asked these intelligence officers who have been lying on behalf of the Biden family for almost 2 years, certainly longer than that, because these laptop allegations, these evidence in the laptop kind of implicates some of the deep state. But these intelligence officers have been publicly lying on behalf of the Biden family for at least 2 years. And so the New York Post asked if any of them had a response to the Times piece. And here were just a few of the notable ones. Yeah, these pop-ups. Alrighty. So, there we go. So Mike Hayden, again, this list is of current and former intelligence officers who signed an open letter stating that the laptop was Russian disinformation. On that list, you had Mike Hayden, former CIA director, now CNN analyst. He did not respond. Jim Clapper, former director of national intelligence, now CNN analyst, said, I stand by the statement I made at the time. Leon Panetta, former CIA director and defense secretary, now runs a public policy institute in California State University, declined to comment. John Brennan, former CIA director, now MSNBC analyst, didn't respond. Tom Finger, former National Intelligence Council chair, didn't respond. Rick Leggett, former National Security Agency deputy director, didn't respond.
I'm seeing a trend.
John McLaughlin, former CIA acting director, didn't respond. Michael Morell, former CIA acting director, didn't respond.
fags.
How dare you?
Jews you need.
Why would you do that?
The left-wing developers who are programming the NPCs in the media, they updated the NPC programming to allow the journalists to say new things. That's why unnamed sources are always used. The source is the NPC programmers.
Oh, that makes sense. It's just like the voice in their ears. They don't know where it comes from. I mean, that makes about as much sense as anything else.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the $10, Triumvirate.
Thank you.
Always appreciate it. Let's see here. So we got a lot of directors and acting directors of the CIA, NSA, and CIA, don't we?
Yeah.
We got Michael Vickers, former Defense Undersecretary for Intelligence, didn't respond. Doug Wise, former Defense Intelligence Agency Deputy Director, didn't respond. Nick Rasmussen, former National Counterterrorism Center Director, did not respond. So that is just a small number. The New York Post went through all 51 signers.
There are dozens more just like these.
So you've got all of these people who are very recent, some of them very, very recent, national security, national intelligence, directors and advisors, the heads of all of the agencies. These people have literally unconstitutional power to spy on you and everything. There's allegations that they used that power to keep Trump out of office and to fabricate evidence against him, and to just spread lies and accusations that they didn't have to back up. It's well known at this point that the Steele dossier was entirely a fabrication, that the FBI helped the Clinton campaign launder through the intelligence apparatus and turn it into something that ended with impeachment. And so you've got these people doing all of that stuff, lying to you constantly in the media, amplifying their lies, and then hiring them and paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue lying. And then you've got this revolving door of the more that they lie, the more the Democrats keep them in power, and then put them back as directors of these overly powerful agencies. And they all said that it wasn't just that, oh hey, this laptop is fake or whatever. Like, no. If you were talking about the laptop at any point in the last 2 years, you were a Russian spy. You were guilty of treason, which is a death penalty offense. You should have been put to death for being a Russian agent, an agent of Putin. Smeared so many people with that. Look at Tucker Carlson last summer was being illegally investigated by the NSA. That was shown to be true. And one of the reasons why was probably because of these lies that he's this Russian Putin stooge, because he was talking about the laptop story. They did the same thing to Trump, saying, Trump is trying to boost this Russian disinformation. And so you have these national security, national intelligence advisors, largely considered to be the heads of the deep state. And they are, again, telling you that you're crazy because you believed that a crackhead might accidentally leave a laptop in a place that he didn't mean to leave it at. Because that's just, so beyond the pale of possibilities that a crackhead might be clumsy and, not keep track of their stuff. It's entirely out of the realm of possibility that could have happened.
Like any good criminal enterprise, every last one of these guys has something or many things they've done illegal that they have on their ledger, right? So part of being part of the elite in group of the deep state is that you give up on the idea of the truth. It is what it is or the party wants is whatever you say or do, and often what that's going to require you to do is to commit additional crimes that you'll not be held accountable for. But also, each of those additional crimes they have you commit for the glory of the party, is one more thing on your ledger that if you ever go against them, they will destroy you. It is a way of keeping you in line as well as using you to push what they want to do. These people, working by virtue of being in the intelligence agencies, have had a lot of opportunity to become corrupted and have things on that ledger. And as we know, the FBI, CIA are legendary for being systemically corrupt.
Yeah, well, and I also, Direwolf Media exclusive is that we have an anonymous source that says that all 51 signatories on this are pedophiles.
The chances that they are exceed the chances that they aren't.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, it's completely non-ironically, like, not sarcastically, like, the chances that, like, a double-digit percentage of those 51 people are pedophiles is, like, extremely high.
That is I would assume, makes up a large percentage of the things on people's ledgers.
Yes.
One way to make sure that you have control over that person is to make sure that you have something on them so ironcladly bad that you could destroy them at any moment, Because who doesn't hate a pedophile?
Pedophiles.
Wood chippers. So the initial list of names came from an open letter signed and endorsed by those 50 former intel officers, stating that the laptop story was Russian disinformation and that anyone reporting on it was a Russian spy. I guess we're all Russian spies now, even the New York Times.
Yeah, the New York Times, noted Russian outlet. The RT, Russian Today, they got evaporated the last 2 weeks, but they're alive and well in the offices of the New York Times, apparently. All right, so obviously, now that it has been quote unquote confirmed by the New York Times anonymous sources, that's the stamp of approval that the establishment requires, and it now has it. There's nothing more reliable than an anonymous source. So the White House was asked about this report quite a few times this week, asked about this New York Times article, and they were asked for comment, and here is Jen Psaki's many responses.
The New York Times has authenticated emails that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Hunter Biden in Delaware. The president previously said that the New York Post story about this was a bunch of garbage and that it was a Russian plant. Does he stand by that assessment?
I pointed the Department of Justice and also to Hunter Biden's representatives. He doesn't work in the government.
So she's pointing you to Hunter Biden's representatives to ask them about, does Joe Biden stand by a comment that he made about this event? That wasn't the question. It was, what does Joe think about Hunter? No. The question was, Joe said a thing. Does he stand by it? And she says, you have to ask Hunter's lawyer. Why would Hunter's lawyer know if Joe Biden stands by what he said?
Who is the expert on what Joe Biden thinks? Joe Biden or his son's lawyer?
Is she implying that Hunter Biden's lawyer would be so involved with Joe, that Joe's so involved with Hunter's lawyer that he would know? And if that's true, what would possibly be the reasoning that Hunter's lawyer would have to be so involved with Joe as to be that familiar with his thought process in the matter?
Is it because he's just equally implicated by Hunter's crimes?
I think Jen doesn't realize what she did. I think that she just implicated the president in a much deeper scandal. She all but confirmed that it was true.
Yes.
All right.
And if I may, you
Jen
asked
also
about
had
Hunter Biden's
this.
laptop. You also, in October 2020, dismissed it as Russian disinformation. Do you stand by that assessment?
Again, I pointed to the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's representatives. I'm a spokesperson for the United States. He doesn't work for the United States.
So if you want to know what Joe thinks, ask Hunter's lawyer. If you want to know what Jen thinks, also ask Hunter's lawyer and or the Department of Justice. Why would the Department of Justice know if Jen Psaki stands behind her opinion? She's right there. She said it. Which is, and again, you see this. Oh well, I'm a spokesperson for the United States, not for Hunter. Well, you didn't have a problem spokesing that a couple of months ago or a year ago. She had no problem saying, "Oh, this laptop is Russian disinformation." But when it turns out that that's not true, well, I can't comment on it. It would be inappropriate for me to comment on it. Okay.
That's ridiculous. At least she didn't say circle back.
That's true. That's true. Well, I think that this is her circles coming back to roost.
Yep. This was the circle back. Didn't go well.
Yeah. Let's see here. So we also heard her asked on another day this question.
On Russia, you told me last year that you were unfamiliar with the Senate report that alleged that the First Son, or a company linked to the First Son, received $3.5 million from the richest woman in Russia. Subsequent reporting indicates that President Biden, when he was vice president, had a dinner in Georgetown with the same woman in 2015. This Yelena Ballerina, she has not been sanctioned yet by the U.S. government. How is President Biden navigating conflicts of interest when it comes to sanctioning people who have done business with his family? And can you explain to us what this $3.5 million was for?
I don't have any confirmation of the accuracy of that report, so I have no more further details.
About the conflicts of interest, though, how he's navigating those when deciding sanctions.
What would be his conflicts of interest?
Well, his son's company allegedly got $3.5 million from...
Which I have no confirmation of, and he has continued to sanction oligarchs more than we've ever sanctioned in the past, so I'm not sure that's a...
Yeah, so, I mean, like she said, we're sanctioning oligarchs more than we've ever sanctioned them in the past. However, somehow, the biggest female oligarch in Russia, the richest Russian woman that exists, somehow she's not on that list of sanctions, even though it's more than ever. And she just so happens to have given Hunter $3.5 million and had dinner with Joe Biden at Georgetown University while Joe was vice president. That's so coincidental.
Yeah, well, since you addressed the main point, I'm going to go after something a little more unnecessary, but we're not going to call it a first son, okay? Because that doesn't make sense if the person has more than one son. No, don't start doing that. It makes sense for saying, the first woman and whatever, but not first son and first daughter. That makes no sense whatsoever. Don't start that.
What about the first pet?
I mean, are you going to start listing it first? Like, what if he has two pets? Okay, how are you going to call it?
I think it's not necessarily a counting mechanism so much as it is a title. So we don't have like princes and princesses that like other countries might have. And
so you have two first pets and two first sons.
I mean, really, now that I'm thinking
first
about
A, first B, like
well, no. I mean, you don't call like all of the royal children are the princes and princesses. It's not like Prince A, Prince B, Prince C. It's just they're the prince. And so like the calling it the first son is a replacement for the royalty terms that other countries have. And so now that I'm thinking about it, grammatically it is correct, but we shouldn't have title. Like why should the family have nobility titles?
Agreed. They shouldn't.
Yes, I think calling them the husband of Kamala Harris or the wife of Joe Biden, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think the son of Joe Biden's acceptable. I think that this whole weird thing that we've got of giving a pseudo nobility title to the family members of elected officials is a little bit wrong.
It's kind of like when the base commander's wife comes up to the gate and forgot her ID and says, "Don't you know who I am? I'm your boss's wife. Just let me through." And that's the kind of same thing. Like, no, you don't have a position. No.
Yeah, something you want to get off your chest, Dyer.
I also told my wife to never, ever, if you got pulled over on base, say my name and rank. Don't do it.
That's what I did when I got pulled over. I was like, "Do you know who I am?"
Oh my god. No. That's not gonna get out of a ticket. It's gonna be, some awkward questions.
Yeah, I was like, "Do you know who I am? I'm friends with Direwolf." And they're like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's."
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Alrighty. Well, our next story is probably something that Jen Psaki would probably much less prefer to talk about. She'd probably much more prefer to talk about this laptop. And that would be the economy, which is a broad topic. What's that?
What's left of it?
Yeah, it's a very broad topic, mostly because it's entirely collapsing. But we're going to try and narrow it down as much as possible. All right, so the economy is just trash right now. The Fed this week raised the interest rates, I believe, by 0.25%, and they're planning on raising them quite substantially. So even somebody as old as Dyer, a lot of you guys listening right now, you probably weren't aware of a time in your life that interest rates have been more than even 1%. It's been a long time since interest rates were anything close to 1%. Interest rates used to be at like 20%. And then they dipped down quite a bit. And then after the 2008 crisis, which a lot of us were, just getting into your awareness stage, probably early teenage years. But you certainly weren't like, probably financially independent at that point. So you didn't really care what the interest rates were. So most of us, though, for most of our adult lives have had near zero interest rates. I think it's 0.75 right now. It might be 0.5, but I think it's 0.75. Either way, the Fed has decided that to cool off inflation, which is at a staggering near 10% now. Though if you look at the congressional spending bill that they just passed last week, it kind of indicates that inflation is at 22%. Do you know why it indicates that inflation's at 22%, Dyer?
Why is that?
Because the budgets for congressional offices went up by 22%. So, there's really no reason for that budget to go up unless, I don't know, for some reason things cost 22% more. So, you might be being told that inflation's only 10% by the price index, by the consumer price index. But Congress, they're experiencing a 22% inflation for some reason that they need a raise to their budgets for.
It's funny. I didn't see a corresponding raise in my paycheck.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
maybe you should go work for Congress. So
clearly in the wrong job.
Yeah. So, but just to give you this is kind of an aside here, is most of us have never experienced higher Fed interest rates. Those Fed interest rates are the basis for all credit. So you're looking at car loans, home loans, credit card bills, student loans, everything that's credit based. Also your savings, if any of you guys out there have a savings account. Yeah, that rate will go up, so I guess you'll be making back a little bit too. But the effects of having near 0% interest rates from the Federal Reserve rate, that has created a very liquid economy that all of us have grown up in. It is going to be very shocking to a lot of people because none of us know firsthand what it's like when your home mortgage, instead of being 3%, is 5 or 8 or 12%. None of us really know what it's like when you go to get a car loan. You find that perfect used car. You're like, all right, I want to go buy this car, and you go to your credit union and you get out a loan, and instead of it being like 4 or 5%, all of a sudden it's 15%. Credit cards are always pretty staggering, even with good credit. That's why I don't keep a balance on any of mine. You shouldn't either. But you look at your credit card interest rate, it's probably between 25 and 30%. Imagine 40%. Imagine 50%. That's what your interest rates are going to be in the next couple of years as the Fed continues raising the rates. I believe that their new target for the interest rate is something like 2 or 3%. Not the inflation rate, but the interest rate. Though they'll likely have to take it up higher than that to slow down the rate of inflation. You're talking about a train, a 100-car long train that is accelerating faster and faster and faster. That's the inflation rate. And raising the interest rate is just throwing on the brake of one of the wheels and not the rest of them. And so every time they do it, it's going to slow down the train's rate of acceleration just a little bit. But all you're doing is slowing down the acceleration. You're not actually slowing down the train. So I don't know what's going to happen, but your interest rates on everything are going to go through the roof. If you haven't bought a house already, get one now.
Yeah, your opportunity to buy a home will soon be gone.
Yes. And in fact, a lot of us who did buy homes in the last couple of years, you're going to, you're probably very excited to see the value of your home go up quite substantially in the last couple of years. That is going to reverse rather quickly because home prices can be high when your mortgage interest rates are low. For instance, my house that I just bought, I got at a 3% interest rate on my mortgage, which is great. And if the interest rate was, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 13% interest rate, I would have been able to afford a much, much smaller house. So because of that, you're going to start pulling people who would be able to purchase a house at 3% suddenly can't at 5 or 10%. And so they're going to not be in the buyer's market, which means you're going to have a drop in demand, which means you're going to have a drop in the price of your house. So a lot of you are going to be very excited to see over the next 10 years, and you can thank Biden for this, your home value just fall through the floor like it did after 2008. Won't that be fun? All right.
So Star Shadow says he wishes he could buy a house. Well, according to the administration, what you need to do is buy a Tesla.
Yes.
So other than the complete destabilization of the Western financial system that Biden's policies have brought about in the past 3 weeks, and widely understood that Biden's domestic energy policy is largely responsible for the current oil prices. One of the most visible policy changes was Joe Biden's decision to cancel the Keystone Pipeline less than 24 hours into his presidency, an action that had the immediate effect of firing 10,000 pipeline workers. Many have cited this decision as the reason for oil shortages and high prices. Biden disagrees, I think.
Yeah, I think that this is a clip of Joe Biden disagreeing, though it's kind of hard to tell. We'll let you guys decide.
Public saying it's Biden's gas pipeline. Biden said he's going to stop the Keystone Pipeline, and I did. And that's the reason prices went up. Folks, let's get something straight here. The Keystone Pipeline was 2 years away and had been 2% finished. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Pipeline, turn on shopping pressure. Blah. So
okay.
I think that was Joe Biden dismissing the claim that the Keystone Pipeline, him canceling that's what caused the current oil shortage. And while it might not be the sole factor, it certainly did not help. He said there that it was 2 years away from being completed. That was 14 months ago. So that means that had he not canceled it, it would have been today, only 10 months away from being completed. So yeah, it might not have done anything for gas prices at this very instant in time, but it would have been nice to know that in just 10 short months, this would all be over. Whereas in the current version of reality that we're in, this is just going to go on forever. There is no end date to it. Would you rather have an infinite end date or a 10-month end date, Dyer?
10 months. So here's another thing is, part of the amount that the oil companies are producing right now is based off of, and whether or not they're willing to try to expand their production, is how are they going to transport their product to get processed. So in addition to not increasing the ability to transport it via building a very important pipeline, also during the same time period, truckers were laid off or were unable to work. And we've had not enough trucks to transport this oil. So they've had the inability to actually move and then sell the product. So it doesn't make sense to pump what they can't store and transport.
Yeah. So if we were in the universe where Joe Biden did not cancel the Keystone Pipeline, and it was at this current moment, at the current build rate, it was 10 months away from production. Well, having the kind of economic disaster that we're having right now, spurred by the the Russian invasion into Ukraine, well, if it was only 10 months away from being completed, one of the possible solutions that would have been available for Joe, which he's no longer available to him, would have been to accelerate the building of the pipeline. You can always build it faster, but you can't just build it once it's not been built at all. So if it was that we had this pipes, that he hadn't canceled it, and that it was only 10 months away from completion, it's very easy to imagine that there would be some amount of money that could be put forward by the taxpayer that would accelerate the build rate to maybe 5 months or 3 months or 2 months. We could have paid our way to getting this pipeline faster so that we could get quicker relief from the oil pressure. However, because he just didn't build it at all, he canceled it, we don't have that as an option. So he removed an option that would have, one, made it at most 10 more months of this crisis, to now it's just infinity. He gave up what could have been a lever to end it sooner. And then we also have the whole idea of just the oil futures market in general, because oil's traded in its future price, not its current price. A little complicated to explain here, just take my word for it. But the idea that there would have been a oil pipeline ready to go in 10 months would have actually made oil cheaper now, because it would have made the future productive, or the future predicted volume higher. There would have been more supply in the future, and that would have made the current price lower. It's like time travel, but finance. So he could have had, if he hadn't done this, the futures market would be much more stable than what it is right now. Right now, the futures market is all over the place because there is no end date at all. Again, we would have had 10 more months till the Keystone Pipeline was done. That would have been an end date. That would have kept the markets stable and calm because they know when there's an end date. Right now, we don't know what the end date for this is. Right now, this is being caused because of the Russian invasion, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But there's a lot of uncertainty in that. We don't know if that's going to go on for another week, another month, another year. We don't know if it's going to go on for 20 years. We don't know if it's going to go nuclear. We don't know if that's going to pull more NATO nations into it, or what this is going to do. And so the futures market for oil is just like, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be expensive. That's all we got for you. Whereas, maybe not the only factor, but definitely a main contributing factor would have been this pipeline. And as Dyer said, Canada's got oil. They fired all the truckers, and then they got no way to move the oil. If they had the pipeline, they wouldn't have needed the truckers.
Yeah, and there's in addition to those problems, Biden also hasn't had any land lease auctions. Even the land leases that already pre-existed, he's not allowing permits to actually to pump oil on that land or develop those land for pumping. Yeah. So he's not allowing new production of oil.
And Triumvirant's pointing out in chat that Canada's energy czar came out this week and is questioning Joe Biden's mental fitness because currently the Biden administration is going to be entering negotiations with Venezuela to start buying their oil again, when we could be buying Canadian oil and shipping it through the Keystone Pipeline right now.
But we'd rather go to our enemy.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to tell the difference between the totalitarian state of Venezuela and the totalitarian state of Canada, but there is a slight difference.
Yeah, like,
one
I don't,
of the leaders has blackface.
I don't like Canada any more than I like Venezuela, but I think it makes more sense to buy from them.
They are America's hat. It is technically closer.
Yeah.
So not only is Biden not bringing in new oil, he's also selling our strategic reserves, which is great. If you aren't worried about war.
Yeah. Is the strategy there? Is the is the strategy related to war strategy or to political strategy? Because he seems to be using it for the strategic political strategy.
Yes. He's using it to save a few cents for a short amount of time, when it really could have been used to sustain military force in a possible conflict.
Yeah, and the real effects of that. So where I'm at, gas went from about $3.10 before the invasion to $4.10 after the invasion, and then this week it dropped back down to $3.80 because of, I guess, they started selling off from the reserve to flood the markets, and so net, I'm plus 50 cents on a gallon, and I'm in a really cheap gas area. So thanks, Joe. Great job.
Yeah. Not very happy about it. But just how much is he selling? How much is selling a little just how much is it selling is a little hard to find out. While doing research, when Fox did the research for the show, he went to here, to Energy, to .gov, and tried to find the current inventory of the reserve. Here's what he found. God damn it.
All right, so I went to energy.gov. You guys, I think you guys can see the URL here, but you can see the big tag up here. It says energy.gov, and you guys can do this yourself. If you go to the page on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is the Strategic Oil Reserve, they have this right at the beginning. Quick facts. They have this link for current inventory, and I was like, "Ooh, great! I want to see the current inventory link because I bet you it'll take me to a graph that shows me how much oil was in the reserve at a previous time in history and how much there is now." And so I clicked on it because my goal was to find that chart and put it in the slides so that I could tell you stuff about it. And this is what I found when I clicked on it. Watch it work now.
It'd be funny.
Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, so you click on it and it gives you this error. Our services are not available right now. We are working to restore all services as soon as possible. Please check back soon. So
why just this one page that would have information that's pretty important to what's going on currently politically?
Yeah. So energy.gov, just again, the energy.gov, the webpage that shows you the current volume of strategic reserve oil that we have is this. It just doesn't work. And this is not a standard error message. It's like you can put, I do some web development, and so you can put pages into maintenance modes or put the whole server into a maintenance mode. And when you get to it, you'll get one of those HTTP errors. It'll be like, 401, 402, 403, 404 is a very common one. But you don't get this. So this isn't a 404 error. This is somebody actually they pulled the whole web page out of this hyperlink and they put a new one into it. And they did a very sloppy job of it because you can see the HTML tags are showing even though they shouldn't be showing. And so whoever did this very, very quickly and very, very sloppily because it doesn't matter what, just get anything else on there but the graph that shows what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is. The reason why is because, I wanted to find this for you guys, but I wanted to go to a real source for it. The graph for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is like a hockey stick straight down. It looks like you took the inflation chart and flipped it upside down. Joe Biden has been selling just millions of barrels every day for the last 2 weeks. At this rate, I believe the current stockpile, if we stopped drawing off of it right now, only has a 30-day supply for the U.S. We used to have a 60 to 90-day supply in there, and that was just under the Trump administration.
Do you realize how dangerous it is for us to not have enough domestic production to maintain our own needs and also not have any strategic supply?
Yes.
It is horribly dangerous for not
that.
even just military context. Like if there was a major disaster that shut down part of our production or shut down a state's ability to do normal commerce or travel, a very bad storm, we wouldn't have enough fuel to make up for that. Like imagine when the cyber attack that took out the pipeline in Texas, right?
Yeah. Or
if
a
that
hurricane.
happened again right now, that would be critically damaging.
And Joe Biden's just releasing oil so that it stabilizes the midterm prospects. Like, it's not for any other reason. But this is what your government does now, is when there are, we've got all these government statistics. We just covered the COVID one. Or did we cover the COVID one yet? Or is that coming up? That's coming up. So No, we did cover the COVID one. No, we didn't. I just remember reading it while we were doing the notes. So we're going to talk about some COVID statistics coming up here, because I don't know where we're at in the show map, apparently. But the government will put out these statistics that are favorable to whoever's in office, apparently, or whatever's favorable to the deep state, I guess. And so you've got energy.gov that keeps the statistics for our strategic oil reserve. And as Dyer said, it's extremely dangerous for us as a country. Like, there's a reason why we built this reserve. It's because we might need it. And it puts us in a very precarious position when we don't have it filled to the brim. And to hide that Joe Biden is selling this they've taken down the website. I mean, this is like a Direwolf Media exclusive. Like I was planning on showing you guys a chart and talking about the chart. The new story became they're literally hiding the chart. And you guys can do this. You guys can go to energy.gov, go to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve webpage, and go to click the inventory, or see the inventory. And again, presumably this would have showed a graph of the volume and inventory of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and it's just gone. They just hide it. I mean, I can't get over that they just decided to hide it instead of showing. And again, like you said, I don't know. You take it away, Dyer.
I hate these unforced errors. We used to call it when I was on a basketball team. When you are given at the ball because you just threw it to no one, right? The unforced errors, right? That is making a huge opportunity for a huge vulnerability in our system where the enemy could take advantage of it, and they routinely do. I would be very surprised if Russia, whom we're currently sticking the dagger in the side of them right now, when we're sticking it to them, that they wouldn't do something to take advantage of this massive opportunity we're handing them. We're saying, hey, here's our... Here, open our chest, stab our heart, please. We're giving you a huge opening. They could easily, with a cyber attack, take advantage of our inability to make up for a loss of oil production.
Yeah. And I remember we did a story last summer, a few months into the Biden administration. They, for no reason at all, dropped the Strategic Oil Reserve by 100 million barrels or something. It was crazy. They just sold it off for no reason because they thought that it was overfilled. And we did a story on that at the time, saying, what is Joe doing? Like this is like clearly. I mean, like it would be as bad to go out and start slashing tires on our jets. Like you can't just sell this stuff off. Like there's no reason to sell it off. Like we build it up for a reason, and it's so that we need it. And I really don't think, as far as oil is concerned, I don't think that you can ever be too prepared for needing oil. And so there was really no reason for them to sell it off, and he just did for no reason at the beginning of his administration. And then towards the end of last year in December, he started selling it out again because the prices were spiking because his policies are terrible. And then now he's selling it again because he keeps making all these blunders. And then all of a sudden, Putin invaded. And so he's using this to stabilize terrible energy policy. Well, we went from about 90 days worth of supply under Trump over Joe Biden's last year and a half, or almost year and a half of presidency. We've dropped that down to 30 days. I mean, I wish I could show you the charts, but I can't because they took it down, because that chart would be a hate fact probably against the Biden administration, showing that he is intentionally weakening America in a very, very sensitive way.
Yeah.
All right, where are we at here? I lost my spot. All right, so fear not the high gas prices, though, because when we have gas is largely a function of transportation, and so when we have problems with transportation, like you can't fill up your car, we turn to the transportation secretary, the person in charge of transportation. And so fear not, because Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, he has a solution for you. Last week he told you, just buy an electric car. Now he heard some criticism from that, realizing, not everybody can afford a $60,000 Tesla at a 5% interest rate. And so he has heard your criticism and has come up with a new solution that might be more approachable for you stupid poor people. Let's listen.
You mentioned gas prices briefly, and they continue to soar across this country. Can the public transportation system, as it's situated today, can it handle a potential influx of people that just can't afford to drive to work anymore? Talk to us about some of the investments you have started to make in infrastructure here from the public transport side.
Well, we do have a lot of capacity in public transit, and that's something that I hope becomes a means of choice alongside driving. That people have good options and good affordable options to get to where they need to be. Look, we need to make sure that there is less pressure on family budgets from transportation, which is often the second biggest budget item after housing itself. One of the tools that we have in our toolkit to do that is to make sure there's access to excellent public transportation.
Yeah, so from the guy who his first day after being appointed the transportation secretary drove a Hummer with his bike in the back of it to a block away from his office, got out of the Hummer, pulled the bike out, and then rode the bike a block to his office while a fleet of SUVs followed him for security reasons and to film him so that he could later post it onto Instagram. That's the guy that's telling you, take the bus, take the tram, maybe get stabbed. If you're lucky, you'll get a hobo to piss on you. That's what his new advice this week is: just take the bus, you idiot. If you're too poor and stupid to buy a Tesla, you don't realize buying a Tesla is a great energy savings. If you're too stupid to do that, just take the bus.
Imagine being so lazy you can go 1 block, but you can't go 2 blocks on a bicycle. Jeez Louise.
I know.
He wants you to take public transport. But not every place has public transport. In fact, he's speaking to a very small number of cities that actually have highly developed public transport that actually makes sense, because you have people who are condensed into big buildings that actually have access to it. But like the last 3 places I've lived, there was no public transport anywhere near where I lived, and some of the places had highways between my community and anything else. So,
and some places don't have hobos that will stab you on the train. So I mean, it's tough out there. It's tough out there.
Right, and right now you're saying that in New York, the ideal thing is for people to, particularly Asian people, to go on subways and on buses where they're likely to be thrown in front of a train or beat the fuck up. Because
I hear black actors also like Subway. Oh wait, you were talking about the train. Sorry.
Actual subways, but also the restaurants. Yeah, it's very dangerous in New York. So are you saying that that's the ideal situation right now, is to have more people using those already crowded and dangerous options? No. And if you're trying to say people in like rural areas, they need to depend on public transport that probably doesn't pick up near their house and probably doesn't drop off at their job or anywhere near it, that they're supposed to depend on that? Are you fucking insane?
Well, and so, people always have been talking about, the hollowing out of the middle class. It's kind of been the anthem, the meaningless anthem for any politician for the last 15 years is, the hollowing out of the middle class is a problem, and they don't really specify what the nature of the problem is or how to fix it. And you take a look at this. You take a look at this. Last week, Pete Buttigieg was saying, buy an electric car, and that will make it so that gas prices don't affect you. This week he's saying, well, if you can't afford an electric car, take the bus. So you have on one hand, buy an electric car, which is base price of $60,000 for a Tesla. On the other hand, you've got take the bus. So there's nothing wrong with taking the bus, and there's nothing wrong with having a Tesla either. But what you're looking at is the two extremes of income distribution, where a 1%er might be able to afford an electric vehicle. A poor person might be able to afford to take the bus. Where is the middle class solution here? Most middle class people drive their own car. That's how America has been designed and operated for 50 years now. It's been even longer than that. America was designed around automobiles. If you've ever been to Europe, it wasn't designed around automobiles. U.S. was. That's been a big part. Having your own car has been a big part of kind of the avatar of your freedom is embodied in that car. You can go where you want, when you want, how you want. And rich people, they can afford nicer cars, and poor people can't afford cars, and they take public transportation. But I would just like to hear from the Biden administration, any official, propose a middle-class solution. I'd like to hear a solution that's for me, not, go take the bus when my city doesn't have buses, and trying to get to where I work at no bus routes there either. And I can't really afford a Tesla right now. So I would like to hear a middle-class solution that's for me and the rest of my middle-class compatriots. Not just, be richer, you idiot, or, be poor, you idiot.
And what about the many jobs that depend on a vehicle? A lot of people have jobs like doing landscaping requires you have a vehicle.
Excuse me, Dyer. I believe you're calling them, I think you mean terrorists, people who need a car. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, why would you need a weapon like that, an assault vehicle? Yeah. So what about the small businesses that are in the middle class, owned by middle class people, but the businesses revolve around vehicles that are now too expensive to operate?
Yeah. Why don't as Trevor is pointing out in chat is transporting food and goods. Yeah, let's put your Amazon packages and your apples onto a subway station and ship it that way.
Well, you see what happens when you put them on trains.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. So, all right. So the executive branch is kind of useless. So, the Energy Department, making their page go down on purpose so that you can't see what's going on. Pete Buttigieg, member of the executive branch, just telling you either be rich or be poor, no options for the middle class. So obviously the executive branch is kind of useless on this thing. So maybe we could turn to the legislature. This week, Nancy Pelosi was asked if there was any more plans for economic relief for those suffering under the economic conditions that the Democrat lockdowns imposed on them. Here was her response to asking again, can Americans who are suffering from the economic policies of the Democrats, are we going to get anything for that suffering? Here's Nancy responding.
I just want to dig into that a little bit more on the COVID relief.
This will be your third time.
My third time, what, ask about COVID relief?
Yeah.
Well, it's substantive. You like substantive questions, so I just want to make sure.
While people are dying in Ukraine and all of that,
people are dying from COVID too. Do you plan to offset it? How do you?
We have to offset it.
You do have to offset.
Yeah. So Nancy's asked about, they got the spending bill coming up. They already passed it though. Are we going to do another round of COVID relief or any kind of economic benefits for people that you've destroyed their lives? And her response is, people are dying in Ukraine. You can worry about domestic issues, but people are dying in Ukraine. And to which I respond rather bluntly, and I think that this needs to become more and more the response as we continue on with this Ukraine stuff, is who the fuck cares about Ukraine? I'll just go ahead right out and say it, is who cares? I don't care if people are dying in Ukraine. She is a speaker of the United States House of Representatives. She's not the speaker of Ukraine. She's not the speaker of Ukraine's House of Representatives. She's the speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. She represents supposedly the American people and our interests. And when asked, hey, Americans are suffering under the policies that you pushed on them, are you going to stop pushing those policies on them? Are you going to help them? And he goes, well, there's people dying in the Ukraine. Who cares?
Okay, so I get that a politician will occasionally, a U.S. politician, talk about things that are going on in the world. But when a constituent or a member of the media asks you, hey, what about this problem that Americans are experiencing? And you respond saying, I don't know. I don't need to talk about the problems and interest of my constituencies and of American people. I'd rather talk about this other topic. No. That other topic is in addition. The primary thing you're responsible, the majority of what you're responsible is what the people in America are worried about. And I promise you, the more people don't have enough money to take care of themselves, the more people can't get a job, the more people are suffering because of your policies, the less they care about Ukraine.
Well, and in that spending bill that just passed, there was $10 billion for Ukraine, and they want to push it up another $5 billion is what the new goal is. So Ukrainians got your taxpayer money. You didn't get any of your taxpayer money, but the Ukrainians did. And on a human level, sure, that sucks for what's happening with Ukraine. We've talked about that multiple times. But from a political level, no. U.S. politics is U.S. based. It is for the betterment and the protection and integrity of the American people, not for anyone else. They have all of these supranational organizations like the UN and NATO and the EU, and somehow, even though the American people are funding a bunch of that, not necessarily the EU, but we're funding a lot of these international organizations, and these international organizations are supposedly the kind of pre-bulwark for a international government, some kind of supranational, and law enforcement type of an apparatus type of a thing, and we're already paying for that. We're already paying for NATO. We're already paying for the UN. And, they want to take responsibility for telling other countries what to do, telling us Americans what to do. And yet when something goes wrong, they don't want to pay for it. They still want the Americans to pay for it. Why should America have to pay for anything going on in the Ukraine? If the UN decides that they want to pay for stuff going on in Ukraine, the UN can pay for it. If NATO decides that they want to do something in Ukraine, they can pay for it. The American people are already paying into that. If the EU decides that they want to do something in Ukraine, the EU has money to pay for that. Why do they got to pull it back out of the American people?
So
yet when the American people get harmed by a forcible economic shutdown that the Democrats pushed for and the Republicans supported, all of a sudden, you get your hand out of the way. Stop being so greedy. You gotta, stiffen your upper lip. Stop complaining. There's people dying in the Ukraine, and I think that unfortunately, the response is going to have to start being, who cares? I want to see more politicians, more Republican politicians saying, I don't care about the Ukraine. I think that if we cared a little bit less about what's going on in the rest of the world, not talking about isolationism, but stop having this pretend emotional over-the-top response. I'm reminded of an incident that happened to a friend of mine recently where something bad happened to the family, and his sister was crying hysterically, screaming and wailing to make a show of, I've got all of this emotion. I'm more emotional than you. I've got more pain than you. I've seen that in my own family with certain funerals and things like that. And that's what a lot of our politicians do, is they scream and wail to create this false emotional theater, to be like, oh wow, you look at them and like, wow, man, they're human. They're just like me. And they're just doing that to create this false narrative that, oh, I need to support, or get you emotionally entangled in this, and I need to support this and give money to it and give my economic power up for it and give these things to them. When the reality is they don't care about Ukraine any more than you do, and you probably don't really care about it either. You're probably worried that, some of that battle might flow over here, that there might be nukes thrown over here. I'm certainly concerned about that. But as for the Ukrainian people, why... It would be a lie for me to tell you guys that I care more about the Ukrainian people dying and suffering than I do about any of the, just name an African nation where there's children suffering under the same horrific and sometimes worse conditions. They're all bad. I don't like them, but the idea that I have this fervent care about it any more than any other place is just a lie. And the politicians are also lying to you. And I think the new response needs to be when a politician brings up something about, or anybody brings up something about Ukraine. Oh, well, we got to do this because of the Ukraine. Oh, we got to make gas more expensive because of the Ukraine. Oh, we got to, send Dyer off to die because of the Ukraine. Maybe that one. But I think the response just needs to be, no, fuck off. I don't care about Ukraine. You don't either. You're trying to emotionally manipulate me. Stop.
So, if it helps you understand why this is outrageous for her to respond to that with, is imagine it was a middle class or lower class poor mother who's saying, I don't have enough money because of your policies, because what you've done with inflation, I cannot feed my children. What will you do to help people like me? And then she responded, we should be talking about Ukraine, not about you.
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, you have to smack your lips.
Exactly.
That's how you do a Nancy impersonation. You just have to smack your lips, and then it doesn't matter how you like your tone of voice. It's just a Nancy impression.
Yeah, that's something she does. And I've had so many people looking at videos and pictures of what's going on in Ukraine and saying, why aren't we going and fighting there right now? Why we should go there and fight the Russians right now? I'm like, okay, so you feel guilty that there's people suffering in another country, and your solution to that is to send people like me to go die on your behalf. It's so brave and stunning that you are willing to make that sacrifice of our lives. But I do wonder, if you don't mind, while you're calculating how many of us you want to send, what amount of American casualties will be enough to dissuade you of your guilt? And while you're considering how many of us need to die, what exactly are you purchasing with those dead American soldiers? And also possibility that that action of sacrificing us, is so brave of you to do that, might result in a nuclear conflict where millions of people die.
I mean, I don't know about you, Dyer, but my only regret is that I have but one dire wolf to give for my country.
Exactly. I definitely signed up to die for Ukraine. Very few people know that, but when I so many years ago joined the military, that was my ethos.
As you joined in the hopes that Russia would finally make their move and you could go die for a Ukrainian oligarch, so that someday that Ukrainian oligarch might be able to give Hunter Biden millions of dollars for Joe Biden.
I know we differ on this opinion, but I'm going to say it anyways because I do. I actually do support the giving of weapons to the Ukrainians, not because they uniquely are deserving of our weapons and our money, but because Russia has actively been conducting war against us, cyber war, economic war, intending to weaken us. And this is a way for us to weaken Russia by letting them, destroy themselves upon the rock that is Ukraine.
I support giving, and this goes for not just Ukraine, but for every country. I support giving any weapon to any country so long as that weapon is available for public purchase and ownership by U.S. civilians. As of right now, your taxpayer dollars, the United States is using your taxpayer dollars to purchase fully automatic rifles and send them to the Ukraine, where they're being put into the hands of Ukrainian civilians. Yet it is a class infinity felony for you to even consider purchasing a fully automatic rifle.
I actually agree with you, and I think the change needs to be that we are allowed to have those rifles.
Yes,
and also not sell. I want them sold. We shouldn't just give away tax dollars to other countries.
Yeah, well, exactly. And we just gave them $10 billion.
Yes.
Yeah, somehow we can't find $10 billion for the border wall.
I hate the payback for helping Biden get elected, huh?
Yeah. As Ukraine's a little bit unique in as opposed to some of the more recent modern wars that we've been in the last 20 years, where it was kind of difficult that if you supported the war in the Middle East, other than joining the military, you really couldn't go fight there unless you want to go fight on the other side, which, some people did. But you really couldn't fight against the Taliban or ISIS or whoever unless you joined the U.S. military. However, Ukraine's unique in that they have civilian militias being integrated into the Ukrainian armed forces. And they already have thousands, I believe over 10,000 now, foreign fighters who have flown into Ukraine and joined the fight as part of the civilian militias. So, Dyer, I would say that the response to people saying, I think that we need to get involved. I feel guilty about what's going on in Ukraine. I think we need to get involved is, you know what? I fully support your decision to, go on a plane and go to Kiev and fight for the Ukrainians. There's, again, unique in the modern era, that we have a war, which if you want to fight it, the U.S. State Department is even in support of that. There is again, thousands of foreign fighters descending on Ukraine right now to fight on behalf of the Ukrainian government. The embassies and the Ukrainian government are set up to facilitate that. If you want to go fight for Ukraine, it is now easier than ever to do that.
You don't even need to set up things ahead of time. Just show up to the border, and they will point you where to go.
And Dyer's not being sarcastic. He's not being like he's.
I'm dead serious.
They will even give you some kit. They'll give you a rifle. They will give you a little bit of armor. They'll give you a uniform if they still have them. But no, I'm not kidding. If you want to, or if you know somebody who's advocating for us to get into it, you don't have to. This is, again, it's unique. We don't have to have the American military get involved anymore. You as a civilian can go do it yourself if you feel so fervently about it.
Like volunteer and mercenary force there right now, plus with some guidance and support from the CIA. So right now, don't go, by the way. I'm not suggesting you guys go. But if you feel so convicted that you think that people like me should be sacrificed on your behalf, maybe you put your money and your life where your mouth is, huh?
Yeah. I'll just again reiterate that, regardless of any war, it's just very regretful to me that I have just only one direwolf that I can give for my country. If there was a way to have more of you, that I could,
you know what, you're right, Fox. It is funnier the second time
for my country. I laughed. So, while it is obviously, we looked at the executive branch, not very good solutions for energy. This was obviously supposed to be an energy discussion. It turned into a Ukraine discussion somehow. I blame Direwolf. Let's see here. So, yeah.
Don't we have a Ukraine section later on?
Yes, we do, and you wrote it. So the executive branch is pretty useless. The legislative branch, obviously useless. So, while it can be expected that party apparatchiks like Nancy and gosh, what the hell's that guy's name? The energy secretary guy, Buttigieg. They're going to have unreliable advice. They're just going to toe the party line. You can't really rely on them for advice. So in those cases, we have to turn to our trusted financial news sources for advice. They will give you an unbiased opinion of how to invest your money, because if they didn't give you unbiased and good financial advice, there would be no possible way they can continue existing giving people bad financial advice, right? So in times like these, we turn to Bloomberg, who for some reason tweeted this out and then didn't delete the tweet, which is amazing. From Bloomberg Opinion, inflation stings most if you earn less than $300,000. Well, geez. That's like even cutting into the 1%. My gosh. So Bloomberg Opinion says, here's how to deal with inflation. Take the bus. Don't buy in bulk. Which is actually terrible advice.
That's a terrible advice.
Yeah, actually you should buy in bulk. I don't like that is extremely bad advice. Like, I have been buying probably like $200 or $300 worth of extra groceries the last 3 months. I just got a house in the last year, so I've been filling it up with food and stuff and prepper things. No, just buying some extra food. But it's if you got stuff that's shelf stable, that you can get in bulk for a cheaper price than a unit price. Yeah, you should absolutely buy in bulk. Did the toilet paper shortage not teach us anything? That's the worst advice ever. But yeah, if you're poor, take the bus. Don't buy in bulk. I don't know why. That all that sounds like to me is just some kind of lie to convince people not to overstress the supply chain. If you can't be held responsible for stressing the supply chain as an individual. If you've got something that you can get cheaply and buy it in bulk, buy it in bulk. I don't care if it stresses the supply chain. You're an individual. You can't be held responsible for that. The free market, if allowed to be free, will adapt. So if you've got the ability to buy something, there's nothing wrong. You don't feel like it's a moral problem. Don't feel guilty. But if you want to buy something and it's there and you have the opportunity to buy it in bulk, and you think it's a good decision financially to buy it in bulk, you should absolutely buy it in bulk. Ridiculous. You should try lentils instead of meat. I don't even know what a lentil is.
They're legumes. They're like beans.
I don't know.
There's different kinds. There's lots of different kinds of beans.
Dyer explained to me what a lentil was by saying another word that I don't know. Legumes.
Legume? Oh my god. It's a category of plant. Just move on.
And then lastly, Bloomberg Opinion says nobody said this would be fun. What? What is the this that they're talking about?
Okay,
Trump
so
said,
I want to point out that
Trump
the person who wrote this most likely is not someone who takes the bus. It has to worry about buying it in bulk because they don't care. They just buy whatever they want to buy because they're wealthy enough to not care about prices. And they probably don't eat fucking lentils. The idea that they're saying just buck up and take it, and you should definitely take the bus even if buses aren't in your area. You shouldn't buy it in bulk, which is like encouraging someone to spend more money, which makes no sense. And then eat beans, don't eat meat. You become a vegan, you poor person.
Eat soy. I like that this guy at the gas station has good trigger discipline.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know about saying it would be easy, but Trump said make America great again, and we had the, quote, best numbers of our lives. Things were going pretty good into that. That sounded pretty easy.
I mean, we didn't say it was going to be fun, but also we did say it didn't have to be necessary because the whole reason why we're suffering all these problems, every last one of the economic problems we're facing right now are directly due to a failure of policy. It is not necessary.
Au contraire, Dyer. In case you thought any of this was an accident, let's remember that you are getting currently exactly what the Democrats promised. And Kamala Harris reminded us of that this week.
But
in
that
this
is
clip.
our task. Our task is to show people that in many ways they got what they ordered. Right? They said this is what they wanted.
That's right. So you got what you wanted. If you voted for the Democrats, this is exactly what you got. You got exactly what you ordered. As Dyer said, this is Democrat policy failures. No. This is Democrat policy successes. What's happening right now is exactly what they wanted to happen, as per Kamala Harris.
As long as you define your goal as
failure,
is making America weaker, reducing our status in the world, destroying our economy so you can rebuild it green, which is actually, once you do what they say they want to do, is just the complete destruction of our country. What they want to do is not beneficial for the country and doesn't practically work. So yeah, we're getting what they promised. But what they promised is failure.
Thank you for the lemon. 33. Yeah, I mean, they ran against Make America Great Again. They said that was bad policy.
Make America bad again.
It wasn't the policy that they wanted. And so, yeah, they've done they ran anti Make America Great Again, and we're getting exactly what Democrat voters ordered. Alrighty. So, and that's just to remind you that even if things seem bad right now, that they're going to get worse because this is the way things are supposed to be. And the more Democrat policies get implemented the correct way, the more of this economy you're going to be getting. So enjoy. All right. So I just wanted to round this segment out with a quick word on the petrodollar, which is far too big a topic to cover in even one show. So I'm going to do a quick reference to it. We might do a bigger segment on this next week. So it was reported this week that the Chinese, Indians, Russians, and the Saudis are considering trading oil in the Chinese yuan instead of a dollar. That would be absolutely devastating to the U.S., but these stories are not exactly new. There have been rumors about negotiations between these and other countries of trading in different currencies for several years at this point. What is different now this week is that due to several moves that Joe Biden has made in foreign policy during his administration so far, it is currently much more of a threat that they might lose the petrodollar, that we might lose the petrodollar than it was before. Again, these stories have been around for years. They've never really been serious of serious concern. But now, because of what Joe has done on the world stage, they are much more concerning than what they used to be. And while there are many factors at play here, possibly one of the most significant is Biden's insistence on re-entering a nuclear agreement with Iran. What?
That's being negotiated by Russia.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Sorry,
Dyer.
that's why I was laughing.
Yeah, I know. So, now what does entering a nuclear agreement with Iran have to do with the petrodollar? Well, the Saudis really, really have final say in what currency oil is traded in. They're one of the premier producers of oil, and they have basically all the sway in OPEC. And so the Saudis really, they're the ones that decided that we were going to trade oil in dollars. I forget which administration did that, but there was a deal. Hey, Saudis, we'll protect you as long as you trade oil in dollars. And they said, yep, that sounds like a great deal. We'll do it. And then from then on, we've traded oil in dollars. And it's because the Saudis agreed to it. If the Saudis suddenly unagree to do it, well, all of a sudden oil's not traded in dollars. So why is it a big deal that we are entering, or that Joe Biden is pushing to re-enter a nuclear agreement with Iran? Well, the Saudis don't like that. They are not interested in having a nuclear Iran on anywhere in their region. So we'll probably cover this in more detail at another time, because this, as Dyer's saying, this whole Iranian nuclear deal being brokered by the Russians is just absolutely insane right now. So we'll probably try and cover this next week. Hopefully it doesn't go through this week. But basically, the insistence by the Biden administration that Iran be able to enrich uranium is possibly the single most destructive thing that Joe can do to America's power and position in the world, because you are scaring the Saudis, rightfully so. And the Saudis might say, hey, you know what? We entered into this agreement to trade oil in dollars because the U.S. said that they would secure our region, which has been a massive reason why we've done so many adventurous military operations in the Middle East. You know, the lefties kind of miss the point. They've got kind of this meme of like war for oil type of a thing, where they've got this kind of theory that we go to war and steal people's oil. No, the reason why we go to war so often is because we like to protect and do things that the Saudis want to have happen in the Middle East, partially because they get to dictate what we're going to do with the petrodollar. So it's not necessarily that we're doing 1-to-1, we're going to war and then stealing people's oil, because clearly we don't do that. But we are going to war to sometimes defend adjacent issues that are important to the Sauds because of the petrodollar. That's one of the things that's gotten us wrapped up in that. So maybe one of the benefits of losing the petrodollar is that we won't have to go to war quite so often. But the Saudis don't like that Iran is, going to be able to enrich uranium under this nuclear agreement. They feel like the U.S. is being derelict in their promise to secure the region for the Sauds. And so China's stepping in and saying, hey, we're right here. We maybe we'll do a little bit better of a job than the U.S. did. And, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. That's only for the Saudis to decide. However, we had under Trump very good relations with the Saudis. Now, the Saudis are terrible. I hate them. It is not even a debatable fact anymore. They supported and funded the 9/11 terror attack.
It's not even to work with them. Huh? Then I was forced to work with them.
And it's not even debated at this point, so I'm not even going to talk about the evidence or anything like that. It's completely proven and factual at this point. So they're awful people. However, we had unprecedented good relations with them under Trump. And then now, under Biden, they won't even take his calls anymore. There was reports this week that in addition to several other countries, the Saudis were not taking calls from the White House this week. And the joke has kind of been, well, and I think it was it Trevor Noah last week? He was saying, they wouldn't have done that to Trump because they'd be worried that they'd get nuked. It's like, yeah, they would have been. You want to say it's bad to have a crazy president? Well, I say it's bad to have a president that is
predictably weak.
Yeah, the people are not scared of and just don't take his calls.
Yeah,
I mean that's why I answer calls from Dyer every time, is because I'm worried I don't know what he's got over there.
He knows I'm insane.
Yes,
I might do anything.
Yes.
It's embarrassing of our country that our president is so weak and our position in the world is so weak that they are just refusing to talk to our president. Yeah, I mean I don't blame them. First off, the fact that the chance that he would not be able to say something intelligible is highly likely, and that I doubt you'd have any reasonable conversation with Biden. And anything.
Could you imagine being a translator for that, like trying to translate that into like Arabic?
I can't imagine trying to translate anything he says even into English, let alone any other language. How many times have you listened to a clip and then we then had to try to say what he said on air? Has it not been difficult?
Well, I mean, we did that a few times just today. We were playing some clips. The clip about him talking about the Keystone Pipeline was barely intelligible.
Right. And usually you go with the funny literal definition of what he said, and I try to find some sort of meaning in what he said, like charitable definition. It doesn't usually work very well.
Yeah. But no, you also brought up a good point, which I think is something that we really desperately need to cover next week or the week after. It's just an ongoing story, this whole Iranian nuclear agreement. So it's nothing like, usually we cover things that are topical. And so it's harder to find a good spot for these long-term ongoing stories like the Iranian nuclear agreement. But as Dyer said, currently it's being brokered by the Russians. So we're funding a proxy war against the Russians in Ukraine right now. And then at the same time, the Russians are, on behalf of Iran, negotiating with the U.S. to allow Iran to get nuclear enrichment sites again against the Saudis' interests. So, like, nobody likes this. The only people who like this are Iran. They just think that we're a bunch of idiots. Iran hates us so much that they aren't even willing to sit down at the negotiating table with us. That's why Russia is brokering the agreement for them, because only Russia is willing to sit down with us, which is crazy that they're even that willing to do that while we're fighting them or we're proxy fighting them in the Ukraine. So the Saudis don't like this. The Iran isn't going to suddenly be nice to us because we do this for them. And Russia just thinks we're a bunch of dolts, which we are, because we're using Russia to negotiate this. So this nuclear agreement, again, there's a lot of factors at play here, but this Iranian nuclear agreement is kind of this dark horse of what is wrong with foreign policy right now. Just like with the oil shortages and the oil price, Keystone Pipeline's not the sole reason, but it is a big visible reason. And I would say of all of the little nuances of foreign policy around the world right now, the Iranian nuclear agreement is probably the single most dangerous thing, possibly also just because it's not really... I don't think it follows exactly, or it's not obvious, the connection between entering the Iranian nuclear agreement and the Saudis dropping the dollar. I don't think that's an immediate jump of logic that a lot of people do, just because most people are not well versed in the politics of the Middle East, and why should you be? You're an American. Don't feel bad about that. Feel proud that you don't know that. But I think that's going to be a really, really big problem moving forward, is if that, especially if that agreement goes through. The Saudis might be pissed enough about it that they just say, we're dropping the dollar right now.
Yeah, on the topic of the big ongoing topics, because we don't have time to expound on all of the context of other stories that are related that have already happened, we sometimes have to allude to previous parts of bits of context of the history of this topic, or whatever the topic is, and just address the current thing, because we also have to address all the other news that happened in the week.
Yeah,
we can't devote an entire show just to one topic. But speaking of topics, our next one is the border.
Ooh. All right, so you may have heard this week that the Democrat Party have been pursuing Biden to end Title 42. Title 42 was the emergency policy that allowed Border Patrol to immediately deport illegal migrants for the purpose of reducing the spread of COVID. Some were concerned that if the Biden administration lifted this provision, that it would lead to a mass wave of illegal immigration, more so than...
But hasn't it already been mass illegal immigration? If Title 42 would have prevented illegal immigration or mass illegal immigration, why hasn't it? Oh, I know, because the policy only works to the degree that it is enforced. Under Trump, Title 42 was an effective tool to prevent illegal immigration. Under Biden, it was used only sparsely to deport small numbers of single males with no wives or children. So is the policy really that big of a deal to lose if it wasn't being enforced?
Isn't that sexist? I think that we need to have a. I'm not kidding. I think some Republican needs to put forward a law that says we can't discriminate on sex for deportations.
The reason why I think they did that was because they need to have some amount of deportations they could say to Republicans that, yeah, we actually are deporting people. See, it's not open borders, we're deporting. But then they also didn't want to have women and children being deported because of the optics of it, and no one cares about men, so they just deported men.
Yeah, so you may have heard that ending this policy would cause this mass wave, as we said, but the reality is that it would not substantially change the flow of illegal immigrants. But it would be an admission that the emergency COVID powers are no longer needed. So having this in place is, well, we have to have this in place because it's, COVID, but at the same time, we want more illegal immigrants. So it's got to be, the Democrats are really, really in a pickle here as to which one they want.
Right. We also saw reports this week that there was 170,000 illegal immigrants poised to rush the border if Title 42 ended. However, 170,000 illegal immigrants is roughly 1 month's worth of Biden's normal.
Yeah. Now, mind you, we don't want them here, but, I mean, they're coming over anyways.
So is this really a real story, or is it trying to drum up some fear about this Title 42? Or because it seems like it's just more of the same.
Yeah, the concern is that it's a waste of time to focus on, right? So if Republicans are wasting time trying to get Title 42 back into place, but Title 42 doesn't actually do anything, then they're just wasting their time. Yep. That's the concern, right?
Right.
Yeah, so the Department of Homeland Security reported that it is, quote, considering calling on volunteers. See, you can go fight on the border too, for reinforcements at the southern border.
So if you have a problem with the border, you can always volunteer, I guess. No. So it's kind of embarrassing that we just aren't funding border security, that they have to ask for volunteers. Is that not a major breakdown in the primary responsibility of the federal government?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we sent $10 billion to the Ukraine so they could secure their border, and we didn't send $10 billion to our border. So
yeah, maybe if we sent $10 billion instead of Ukraine's border but to our border, we could actually hire enough people to patrol it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just an idea.
So, I think that there needs to be parity between foreign and domestic spending. I feel like there is an absurd amount of spending that we push out, that we spend foreign money and we don't spend domestically. I think that there should be like a forced relationship that only 10% of the budget can go to outside the country. The rest of it has to be spent inside the country.
Or here's a radical idea: how about the Ukrainians and the Ukrainian government are responsible for the borders of Ukraine, and every other country has the same exact deal, and we take care of our own.
But if they did that, then they wouldn't be able to give Hunter millions of dollars.
Ooh, yeah, that is really important to me, because I like the idea that we have a son of a major politician in America that's smoking floor cheese. So the Biden admin Friday decided to maintain Title 42, but end the expedited removal of illegal immigrants part of Title 42. So the expedited removal allows for the removal of migrants captured crossing the border or within 100 miles of the border without requiring them to go to trial. It's like kicking someone off your lawn. You don't need to take them to court to prove that they don't have a legal right or legal reason to be there on your lawn. Expedited removals was the teeth of Title 42. And without it, Title 42 is meaningless, but maintains the idea that COVID-19 is still an emergency.
All right. Well, speaking of not our border, Ukraine.
Oh, back to that topic. I wish we had talked about Ukraine during the Ukraine segment.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's almost like we... one of us went totally off the show map. So Ukraine, we are now on the 24th day of Ukraine-Russia war. Being that this is a very serious world event, very, very serious, naturally our government sent the most serious and capable politicians to represent our nation at this very serious time. So let's check in on our Vice President, Kamala Harris. Uh-oh.
The diversity hire.
There we go.
So I will say what I know we all say, and I will say over and over again. The United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people in defense of the NATO alliance.
Yay! And there was much clapping and rejoicing. Yeah, that's great. I really think wait a second. Ukraine defending NATO. Is Ukraine's hold on a second. I don't tell me, Dyer. Don't tell me. I think I got it. Ukraine is a NATO country. That's why Ukraine's defending NATO with us, right?
Actually, no.
Oh no! Are you telling me that Ukraine's not fighting in defense of the NATO agreement?
No, actually, Ukraine is fighting to defend Ukraine.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, contrary to the popular belief of, again, our elected officials, some people voted for her, right? Kamala Harris does not realize that Ukraine is not a NATO country. In fact, that's the entire point of this war, is the the disagreement as to whether or not NATO or Ukraine should become a part of NATO, because they currently are not a part of NATO.
And currently, Zelensky is saying he's not ever going to be part of NATO, that Ukraine will never be.
What the hell do you got to be part of NATO for anyways? Apparently the U.S. will send you billions of dollars and billions of dollars of weapons. And
yeah, they never paid into NATO, but they got the benefit of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, realistically, I mean, like, all of that money and funding should have gone into, well, we really shouldn't have done any of that because we've already been funding NATO for 50 years. There's really no reason to like bolster it now. It should be already bolstered. But if we wanted to move some NATO assets around, I could see moving them into Poland and some other places just to kind of bolster up those NATO countries that are closest to the border. But I don't see why, if we're already a part of NATO, why we're also funding Ukraine. Who cares?
Okay, so Kamala Harris doesn't know the whole context of the Ukraine-Russian war, and doesn't know that Ukraine isn't actually in NATO and isn't fighting for NATO. Sure, she doesn't know that, but we live in a world where, they can change history and the truth on the fly. So the White House altered what she said on the official transcript to correct her statement.
Really?
Yep. It read, the transcript of that video you just watched, read, the United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people, and they interjected the word "and" in defense of the NATO alliance. The word "and" was added in brackets to show that the word was meant to have been said, but that it was left out. So are you sure that she meant to say it? Is there proof that she meant to say it, or does she really just stupid and didn't know what she was saying? And now they're trying to cover for her not understanding what's going on in the war that she was sent there to advocate or to represent America's interest in.
Yes.
So when Kamala explained that Russia invading Ukraine was basically bad, like she was talking to first graders, it says less about how dumb she thinks we are and more about how dumb she is, because that is the depth with which she explains the Ukraine war off the cuff. That's the degree that she understands, that's how she structures the words in her mind. And so that video of her describing the war as being, so that's basically bad. That shows how dumb she is on the topic, and that she shouldn't be representing our country on the world stage if that's the depth for which she understands the topic.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris was no help at all for Ukrainian people. How about we check in on the person third in line for the presidency, the drunken crypt keeper, Nancy Pelosi.
Know that we can't go there. Putin is trying to bait the trap so that we go in, and that's could be the beginning of World War III. Putin totally irresponsible, using weapons that are not allowed under the Geneva Convention. Putin, who threatens use of chemical weapons, nuclear, and the rest. So they know that we can't, but it's the ask. Now, he was this morning more. If we can't have a no-fly zone, let us have our own, and we need the airplanes to come in. No. This morning he was less on the ask for the policy, more on.
So she's referring to Zelensky talking to Congress, and Zelensky in his address to Congress literally asked for a no-fly zone enforced by the United States. So I don't know what speech she's watching, where she's saying, well, he wasn't really asking for us to enforce a no-fly zone. He was just asking for supplies and manpower to enforce a no-fly zone. No, Zelensky was actually asking for U.S. Air Force to go into Ukrainian airspace and start shooting down Russian planes.
Not just that one speech. Every single speech he gives, he says that.
Zelensky asked, he's like, well, I don't know if I don't think it's that much to ask to secure our skies. Again, the whole thing with NATO and the US's interaction with Russia has been to prevent nuclear war for 50 years or more. And Zelensky wants us to just throw all of that away and start shooting down Russian planes. No. No. And then Nancy's trying to cover for him by saying, well, he's not really asking. Yes, he is. He literally is asking either that or you need to fire your translators because the translators said, I want you to enforce a no-fly zone. I don't think it's that much to ask. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Quite a lot to ask, actually. So why do your actions lack consistency? Why are you okay with SAMs being given to Ukraine to shoot? So why are you okay with giving surface-to-air missiles to Ukraine to shoot down Russian aircraft? Why aren't you willing to give them MiGs? That's something that bothers me. Obviously, she looks like she was freaking having a fucking stroke, right? She is not making sense, and she's also not talking about the reality of the speech. But we also
didn't get to the part where she said that she wants to start bombing the 40-mile column either.
Oh yeah, she says that too. Yeah.
You want me to finish it out?
Yeah,
let us do it. Help us get the planes. But also, there is a school of thought that thinks the anti-aircraft missiles and the rest are a very important way. Myself, when I see those tanks, that 40 miles of tanks, I'd like to take out those tanks. I mean, I think that them having more planes might be useful, but that I'm not a military strategist.
Okay, you want to take it out with American Air Power? How about you jump in a plane and do it yourself?
Yeah, Nancy, you can actually, with American funded weapons, you can go to Ukraine right now, probably get an American-made Javelin and shoot it at a tank if you would like.
I would pay for the flight to have her flown over to Ukraine to fight in that war.
GoFundMe to support Nancy Pelosi fighting for Ukraine.
Absolutely. So again, she's fine with sending SAMs, but she's not okay. We weren't okay. At least with Biden, it wasn't okay with sending the MiGs. I don't get the lack of consistency. I get if you don't want to send any weapons to Ukraine. Okay, I get that. I get if you are okay with sending weapons to Ukraine, but I don't get why you would be okay with SAMs but not okay with MiGs.
Well, also here's the thing. So I don't think either, but I think that the SAMs are a little bit more replaceable than the planes are. So the MiGs that we would or wouldn't be sending to Ukraine are Poland's Air Force. So Poland has offered to send their MiGs to the Ukraine. There was at one point an idea that perhaps the U.S. would send F-16s there, but the Ukrainian pilots don't know how to fly F-16s. They do know how to fly MiGs. Now, it's unclear whether or not Poland's pilots can fly F-16s, though it's possible. So the idea would have been, the intention here that Biden said no, and good on him for saying no, was Poland, a NATO country, wanted to send their MiGs to the Ukraine and then have the U.S. backfill with our F-16s. So you're talking about consuming, because those MiGs are going to get shot down.
Yes,
those MiGs are gone. Those MiGs are done. And even if they don't get shot down, they are going to be used in such a way that the maintenance on them coming back home, as you're going to have to do a full gut and redo everything, because you're in Ukraine right now, they're fighting a hard war. Any equipment that they have is going to get run hard. And when you bring those planes back, if they aren't shot down, they're going to be down for the count for at least a year while they get refitted. So you're talking about consuming a gigantic portion of NATO's military readiness and just sending it into Ukraine. No. SAMs are one thing, but an active air force, a plane, is a totally other thing. We cannot be just sacrificing NATO assets just into the Ukraine while we're not in a war right now. If we're going to sell new unaccounted for SAMs to the Ukraine, like SAMs that are not currently in the NATO inventory, that's one thing. But if we're going to take planes that are currently in NATO inventory and just throw them into the fire, no. That's a huge difference. You got to see that's a huge difference.
I mean, I get with not wanting to send the F-16s. I wouldn't send F-16s to Poland. First off, that would require us. Those are not 16s we have. We'd have to be giving up 16s that are in our inventory, or we're not going to be building more. I don't think that's not been congressionally allocated,
Poland's
right?
MiGs would be part of the NATO inventory.
And then we'd have to train them how to use F-16s and get them a supply chain for maintaining them. That's completely out of the realm. Now, I frankly don't care if the Polish want to give up their planes to get blown up. I don't think it's going to be very effective.
I agree with you if and only if Poland renounces their NATO status. If they want to pull out of NATO, they can do whatever the fuck they want. But if they're going to be part of NATO, no. There's agreements that come with being a part of NATO, and one of those agreements has got to be that you don't just consume NATO inventory military assets without a NATO operation being in place. You don't get to just
pay the 2% toward of their GDP towards maintaining and building up military forces, and most of the countries in NATO have not been doing that, and that is the basic requirement for the agreement of NATO. So it feels like that NATO's agreement is null and void since we're the ones paying for most of only a couple countries. Was it three total?
The very first day of this engagement with Russia, the NATO commander should have said, any country that is operating any NATO country that is operating independent of NATO in this event, you are going to be immediately and prejudicially ejected from the NATO alliance very publicly. If Poland sends a single bullet to the Ukraine, they will be immediately ejected from NATO. That's what should have been said on day one. But because we were so squishy about it and we wanted to do this, I mean, really what's going on in the Ukraine right now is not even a proxy war for the U.S. It's a proxy war for NATO. You have a supranational organization having a proxy war with Russia. How fucking insane is that?
I think that we've been in that situation for a while now, actually. Multiple different proxy wars, Syria, Libya, in Iraq, Afghanistan, the forces
those
we've
were
been fighting
US proxy. Those were U.S. proxy. I'm talking about like specifically a NATO proxy war, where you've got NATO countries using the Ukraine as a proxy.
I mean, NATO was involved in some of those as well. Remember that they actually did Article 5 of NATO when we were attacked.
Well, that's not a proxy war, then. That's a direct war.
Fair enough.
Definitions have words, Dyer.
Definitions have words. Great. Yeah. So, I mean, to the degree that we were enabling the Afghani military to fight against Russian-backed terrorists, it was a proxy war. But we were also literally there.
I just
it's
can't
not
wait.
Really a proxy war.
I just can't wait for 10 years from now when, after we help Ukraine kick Russia's ass, when the Ukrainians are shooting at Americans for no reason again
with the weapons we gave.
Yeah,
them.
that's typically how these things go, right? So like, what do you think the Ukrainian terrorist organization is going to be called that attacks America?
Azov.
Which that is okay. So there you go. No, that's an exact 1-to-1 relationship, as we are funding apparently Nazis. I don't care if it's 1 or 1,000,000. We're funding one of them at least. So, yeah. I think that the stance has to be, I don't care about Ukraine. I think it needs to be forcible, and I think that anybody who's pretending to care about Ukraine to the detriment of America, or to the use of American assets, money, personnel, equipment, etc. That they care about it so much that they want to spend those things.
How about this?
I think that they need to be absolutely embarrassed, and you need to just be blunt and say, I don't care. You don't care either. You're lying.
Instead of sending MiGs, how about we send the Ukrainians our best military equipment, the F-35?
Yeah, we can just fly them there if they can make it, and then just park them in the road in front of the tanks.
I stole that from Slowpoke. Still funny, though.
Do you think that a F-35 could make it from any of the places that it's stationed to the Ukraine, or is that like too far outside of its flight range?
Pretty sure not supposed to say where they're stationed currently.
Anywhere that they're stationed is probably outside their flight range.
But it would be... Where are you trying to fly them to exactly?
I don't know.
Like the border or like middle of Ukraine? Because that's a big difference. Ukraine's kind of big.
Let's just fly them into the tanks. Apparently, the recent stats have been was it 1 to 4 or 1 to 3, where every time Ukraine loses a vehicle of some kind, the Russians are losing 3 or 4.
It was 1 to 3, which, by the way, was actually kind of the ratio of vehicles entering the battle for the two sides. So it's like, wow, you guys are staying on ratio. Good job.
Yeah.
They also claim to have killed 14,000 Russians.
I believe that the State Department has claimed they've killed at least 7,000. So
Yes.
the official U.S. number, which is, I mean, it's debatable, but I would say the official U.S. number, I would say that that's more accurate and is probably lagging behind the real number. But anytime you're seeing numbers out of the Ukrainian ministry, like those are going to be super inflated.
They're
literally twice what the State Department numbers are.
There is a website that tracks every single Russian vehicle destroyed and links directly to pictures and video of that vehicle showing it was a confirmed kill.
Oh yeah, I've got a website of the Ghost of Kiev every kill that he had too. Oh
yeah. So
wait,
videos, pictures can't be faked. You're right.
Weird.
Yes. So let's move on with the story before it takes too long.
Where are we at in the story?
We're at okay.
There's a lot of okays. Okay, so the U.S. government is not doing very well at telling us what is going on. How about the most trusted name in news, CNN? This is CNN. Is there a slide in here for that?
There is.
Is it this one? Is it this one?
I'm not seeing. It's the first one with the Russian.
Is it this one?
This one right there, the black background.
Oh, okay. That one?
The one that followed the Putin's.
Do I need to get out of the slides and get back into them? Is that what the problem is?
Okay. Do I need to open up the slides to tell you what the following slide was?
Well, you can see my screen, can't you?
It's. I'm not looking at your screen. I'm looking at the stream. It's gonna be slide 8.
Okay.
Which followed slide 7.
I'm on slide 8. It says the Times.
Oh, Times. Apologies. So, the most trusted name in news, the Times.
Are you kidding me? I was looking for a CNN slide. That's why I was like.
In any case, where are we in this?
Okay, so we have this great story from The Times, or as Dyer calls it, CNN. Apparently, 3 Russian cosmonauts who recently arrived at the International Space Station decided to travel in spacesuits that were designed after the colors of the Ukrainian flag.
Wait. That doesn't seem right.
No, Dyer, no. You see how space works is that it's like a fashion thing. Like before you go in space, you just like go in your closet and you're like, oh my gosh, like this spacesuit, like, oh my gosh, it's got the perfect colors. And you like pick out which spacesuit that you want based off the colors that you think best fit with like your eyes or your shoes or something that day. It's just like getting dressed for work. I know that you're getting dressed for work is a little less fashionable.
So
the rest of us get to pick what color shirt we wear to work.
So we're supposed to believe that these 3 cosmonauts secretly, on their own, built special spacesuits, very specialized pieces of equipment, by themselves, and I'm assuming their garage or something, without anyone in the Russian government who would be very opposed to them doing this, knowing.
Yeah, and then they modeled it after the Ukrainian flag, which, as you know, is yellow and blue. And then, I think that they just have some like status patches, or maybe like I don't know, maybe some kind of like military badge where it's like a white stripe and a red stripe. I think it's got nothing to do with the flag, but it's just.
What do you mean they're wearing Ukrainian colors? That is clearly just a yellow suit with Russian flags on 3 locations.
Dyer, are you saying that you don't believe in the legend of the Ukrainian flight suit?
Also, at what time would they've had to do this? They're wearing Russian flags on a yellow suit, for God's sake.
I see what you're saying. But the Times says that they arrived at the International Space Station in flights made of yellow and blue of the Ukrainian flag. It's also not the correct blue. The Ukrainian blue is much lighter than the Russian one.
Okay, well, tell what's going on with this.
All right, so this is pretty awkward. Here is a picture of a Russian cosmonaut in 2015, wearing the exact same space flight suit.
Oh, wow, that's progressive. They're supporting Ukraine back in 2015?
I know, it's wild. And those are clearly not Ukrainian colors. They're clearly Russian colors. Again, given that there is the white and red stripe of the Russian flag next to the blue stripe, which is, in fact, the wrong color blue. Ukraine's military claims to have killed 10 high-ranking Russian officers, additionally, including 6 generals, which is very good for Putin, as he normally, after military engagements, fires those people. So,
anyways,
yeah, so it's it's just a little bit quicker. It makes HR's job a lot easier. Let's see here. So they have the Ukrainian military has published the names and photos of each slain officer, as well as how they confirmed their deaths. We, Direwolf Media, cannot confirm these kills because the Ukrainians have been, very willing to fake photos and videos.
They have lied a lot. The only one that we could plausibly confirm was one of the generals, because a veterans group in Russia acknowledged his death. Every one of the other ones was, they heard that he died over the radio. Like, how do I confirm that?
The Ukrainians are like really good at propaganda. Like they're almost as good at propagandizing and lying as like the CIA is. It's
you
really...
might even say that they follow the exact same tactic. In fact, they might even have been educated or helped by, let's just go all the way. I bet you the CIA is helping them.
The CIA is clearly helping the Ukrainians create their propaganda. So this is kind of just an aside, but if you've wondered, like, why is it that we keep seeing some of these like very high level stories of like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy that happened, like the Ghost of Kiev and all that stuff, and then the next week it's like, oh yeah, that was fake, or it couldn't be confirmed, or whatever. They have this extremely good propaganda operation going on. It's very, very effective, and it's very hard for even Dyer and I to try and parse through some of this stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't. Every time you see some of this stuff, your initial reaction is like, oh my god, I can't believe that's true, and you really, really gotta slow down that lizard brain. You gotta pull yourself back a little bit and analyze it. Take a few moments to really think about it, and then start looking into, is this verifiable? And it's not, and most of the time it's the opposite of verifiable. It's verifiably false. And so they're really, really good at this. I've not seen propaganda operations like this outside of the U.S. And a lot of the propaganda operations inside the U.S., I'm thinking mainly of the Antifa and BLM operations, painting them in a good light, and then all of the hubbub about the January 6th riot and all of the right stuff, the right-leaning stuff. It seems very obvious to me that the quality and effectiveness of the Ukrainian propaganda is being bolstered by Western agencies. That just seems very obvious to me. I don't have any way of confirming that, but it's certainly my suspicion. And while I don't have any way of confirming it, I don't think anybody would or it ever will be confirmed. And so it's an unfalsifiable assertion. So do with that as you will. But anybody who tells you that, no, they definitely are not helping, the West is definitely not helping the Ukrainians create propaganda. Well, they also said that the CIA and the FBI didn't help the Bidens with that laptop. So, take that with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Alrighty. So, what Direwolf Media can confirm is that Britain on Tuesday said that they will be sending anti-air missile systems alongside, on Thursday, so they will be sending anti-air missile systems alongside 100 military personnel to Poland to protect its airspace against any Russian aggression, which is perfectly fine. That is an acceptable use of NATO assets and NATO nation operations.
Yep.
I support
and that is
Fox
in addition. That's in addition to a lot of anti-air SAM sites and detection systems that are already in place in the NATO countries around the Russian border. So that is just bolstering that with the. I guess they assume there probably will be a conflict in the future, and that they want to be prepared for it. So the another thing we can confirm is that the Space Foundation, which runs an annual space symposium conference in Colorado Springs, censored the name of the first man in space, Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. Gagarin, thank you. Now, ordinarily, this symposium would have a event scheduled titled Yuri Night, which was renamed to something long and stupid that I'm not going to say. But the point was that because of the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, they decided to scrub some famous Russian who did something important for history.
He wasn't even a Russian. He was a Soviet.
Important Soviet who the things that they learned from his flight, it was groundbreaking, important research used to help develop our space program. That it was important to history. And he, in the past, has nothing to do with the Russian government and their actions now. And they felt that it was a reasonable, logical thing that in response to this conflict to scrub someone's name from history or at least from an event about history, which is, it's silly.
Well, and again, it goes to the idiocy of this, which is they don't understand that there's a difference between the Soviet Union and Russia. It's a different country. Yes, I know it's like largely the same people and largely the same
Soviet Union wasn't different. Good, but so the Soviet Union did a lot of bad things.
Yeah, exactly. Are we to take this that the Space Foundation was endorsing the actions of the Soviet Union up until this year? That they endorsed the Holodomor, that they endorsed the starvation of millions of people during the transition to communism? Are we to take it that they had endorsements of that they endorsed the secret police, the Stasi, and the all of the just terrible things?
Are we to believe that all the things that the Soviet Union did were not bad enough to make them want to censor Yuri's name, but this one event, the Russian-Ukrainian war, that is resulted in far less human suffering and deaths, it just, by measurement, there's been far fewer people who've died in this conflict, less people have suffered in this conflict than other things the Soviets done. This one event is more serious and warrants the censoring of Yuri's name. That doesn't make sense.
I think I think that they need to censor the names of every Native American in history, because America's done some pretty bad stuff, and so the Native Americans need to have their names scrubbed.
Name one country that hasn't done something bad, and because by that logic, every single person's name in history should be scrubbed.
The micronation of Sealand has never done anything wrong, and they were unjustly invaded by the Coast Guard.
Yes, just because a country is bad does not mean things that happened in history didn't happen. And just because the Soviet Union and Russia currently have done evil, terrible things, it doesn't mean that Yuri, his accomplishments didn't happen. They were important, and it's important to discuss them.
This is the ever-present now that was warned of in 1984. All right, So earlier this month, after the invasion began, the International Cat Federation, which is, do you know what the difference between a federation and a confederation is, Dyer?
No.
So a federation is a forcible union of multiple entities, and a confederation is a voluntary association of multiple entities.
Oh.
And so it's funny that the cat people would call themselves a federation. They've like forcibly band together. It's funny because nobody knows that because the Confederates like ruined the word confederation, but like it still has a meaning, right? Like it still means what it means, and like federation means a non-consensual alignment. And so it's funny. In Star Trek, they have the Federation, which is supposedly the good guys, and then the evil universe has the Confederation. Well, the Confederation would mean that they voluntary association of planets, whereas the Federation is obviously a fascist entity. And so it's just funny to me that nobody knows that's the difference between a Federation and a Confederation, and so it's funny that the cats people would say that it was a forcible union of cat organizations.
Well, can you get cats to agree to be together?
Well, of course not. That's why it's got to be a federation.
Exactly.
Yes. All right. So the cat fascist union has banned Russian cats from participating in its international competitions. My goodness. What if it's a male cat that wants to be a girl cat? Can they still compete? The real question is, why do they let any cats compete? Cats are worse than Russians. They could operate weapons and try to kill you.
If they could operate weapons, they would try to kill you.
They also make Dyer's hackles go up and he growls a lot.
Cats are evil. Everyone knows it. They shouldn't be able to beat anything.
I was a little offended at this because my first cat was a blue Russian, which are very pretty, and she was not very nice. But she was nice. I just wanted to hold her more than she wanted to be held. So in my opinion, she wasn't very nice. But she was a blue Russian. She's very pretty, and apparently she is now verboten. Her name was Cuddles.
But she didn't like to cuddle. Irony.
Yes.
So there were also reports this week that Russia would end all fertilizer exports, which would...
Oh my God. Well, that's obviously going to cause a Methuselan collapse and everybody's going to starve to death. We're going to have 5 billion people are going to starve to death in the next month, Dyer.
Yeah, so a lot of people predicted what you just said, that there'd be a worldwide famine. The apocalypse would be happening right now, this very moment in time.
It would be like Africa.
Yeah, it would be like Africa, where we can't farm anything. We're all starving. Well, all this land that we could be farming on. That is not completely true at all.
Are you saying that maybe that was just undue panic and speculation? Oh no.
yes I would say a little bit of hyperbole there and a little bit of unnecessary panic, but here's what is true.
I put it in the titles and we got the views, so who really cares if it's true, Dyer?
Exactly. The truth doesn't matter. You just read the articles.
It's the views. Yeah.
So here's what's true. Russia makes up about 12.6% of the global fertilizer export market. If Russia were to cut off or significantly reduce fertilizer sales, there would be food shortages in the next planting season, but not likely worldwide famine. Production in other countries is capable of partially closing the gap between should Russia cut production. They have production of fertilizer in Europe has already started ramping up to make up for the possible reduction from Russia. However, this market is very important to the Russian economy. It would not be very logical for them to take something that makes up a large portion of their economy and just give up on it. The Russian government this week did ask local fertilizer producers to reduce exports. They said the reason for cutting exports was due to, in quote, delivery issues with foreign logistics companies. The problem is if they tried to export, it wouldn't get to the markets, thus they could not sell it. It's not that they didn't want to sell it, it's that there was a breakdown in logistics. Instead of cutting exports of fertilizer entirely, they are far more likely to just simply change who they are selling to. They still are a rational actor as far as the market's concerned and want to sell their product to make money to fund their war. The largest fertilizer importers, like Brazil, are neutral in the conflict. There's no reason why they wouldn't be able to sell to the bigger importers of fertilizer. It's not that they're selling it to the U.S. The U.S. and Canada are heavy exporters of fertilizers. We don't need their fertilizer. We have enough for ourselves and to sell to other countries. European and NATO allies who allowed themselves to rely on their self-proclaimed enemy are likely the only nations to suffer any major effects or disruptions on the fertilizer market. But then again, they could just shift who they're buying from. If Russia changes who they sell to, that means other providers now are freed up.
In the words of Kamala Harris, they are getting what they ordered for, which is shortages and wartime.
Yes.
The much larger problem is a lack of wheat production by Ukraine, which has been dubbed the breadbasket of Eastern Europe. Ukraine and Russia, due to the war, not due to sanctions. For some reason, farmers don't feel like farming wheat when there's a war going on. I don't know why.
Just operate your farm equipment. Dodging bullets and missiles. It's all right.
Yeah, come on. There's this funny video last week of it was allegedly Ukrainian farmers. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they drove up with a tractor. There was some Russian tanks parked on the side of the road, and these Ukrainian farmers came up with their tractor, hitched the tank, and started driving away with it. And the Russian soldiers were just like, "Stop! Like, what are you doing? No!" And they just yeah, fuck you! Like, we're taking your tank. And as Alex Jones has pointed out, they don't want you to know this, but the tanks in Ukraine, they're actually free. And I only have 2 of them at home, but they don't want you to know about that. They're free.
The more people who know about it,
there's less tanks for everybody.
Exactly. Right? The limited supply now.
Yeah. So I mean, it is just like a little secret between us and the audience is they're free. Government doesn't want you to know, but now you do. All right. So Africa will be the primary, I guess, person or group affected by the lack of wheat production in the Ukraine. I'm sure that will come back to bite America at some point because we'll probably be asked to provide them stuff. I'm sure, as we always are. I'm sure they can cozy up to China because Africa seems to be pretty cozy with China lately.
What China do to help them? China is a
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, maybe they should choose their allies a little more wisely. Or do anything wisely.
If we stop selling them rice that's grown in California, China would starve to death.
Yes. Okay. So the primary effect will be Africa will be, I guess, I don't know. They're already pretty hungry. Can they get hungrier? I guess they probably can. No, I don't think that you can get hungrier. I think you just die. All right. So
yeah, lots would die. Yes.
Let's see here. So also we have a bunch of idiots teaching your kids.
One quick note, Timberwolf, no, you can't just poop in a bag and become a exporter of fertilizer. You need potassium.
Yes, so eat a banana first. That's what he was missing, right? All right, so these people teach your children. This is the AFL-CIO, which... I forgot the L. The AFL-CIO. They don't know what the Ukrainian flag looks like. So for those of you who don't know, the Ukrainian, and again, or Americans, one of the privileges of being an American is that you don't really have to be concerned about foreign events, or at least you didn't used to be. And so I don't belittle anybody for not having knowledge of foreign events. But if you're going to talk about foreign events and you're going to talk about foreign policy, it would be best if you had, any foundation in what you're talking about. That's the only caveat. If you just don't care, don't know, but you're not advocating for us to do something in Ukraine, that's fine. If you're going to be advocating for us to do something in Ukraine, if you're going to be advocating for Dyer to die, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to advocate for that, but you should at least have some understanding of what it is you're asking him to go die for. And so if you don't know, the Ukrainian flag is a blue bar on top of a yellow bar, not a yellow bar on top of a blue bar, as can be seen in the photo on the right. The 2 women pictured in this, holding up the sign, are the presidents of the unions for the teachers' unions. I can't remember what the one on the right's name is, but it doesn't really matter. She's in charge of the teachers' union. So these are the people not teaching your kids for the last 2 years, but still taking your taxpayer money to fund the Democrat Party, I guess. And they don't know what the Ukrainian flag looks like. Yet they, quote, stand with Ukraine. How can you stand with Ukraine if you don't know what Ukraine's flag looks like? So not only, and we knew this a while ago, not only do people not know where Ukraine is on the map, they don't even know how to recognize Ukraine's identifying symbol. They know nothing about it other than the name. And again, they are still advocating for people like Dyer to go die there, and for maybe a nuke to come. Well, I mean, who can argue with a nuke in DC? But they're arguing for a nuclear war, essentially, or what would lead to a nuclear war with Ukraine, or with Russia. And you can see in the picture on the left, which we've got quite a few of these. Picture on the left here is a bunch of teachers union people all standing holding up the same wrong printout. And you can see that there was an attempt. The AFL Twitter account tweeted this out originally with everybody holding up the flag upside down, and they deleted it and tweeted out another one that had photoshopped very poorly a bunch of correctly oriented flags, I guess. And you can
What's worse, the fact that they got it messed up in the first place, or that they did such a shitty cover-up job?
So you
What's
can
worse?
see in the picture on the left, in the upper portion, you can see that you can still see the real one that they were holding that's upside down. And then you can see in the foreground a very poorly photoshopped version of it, which I think I can find. I think we've got some more pictures of this. Let me see if I can pull these up. Nope, that's Nancy. No,
look, the lady on the left there has some epic resting bitch face right there.
Oh, she's a union thug. Yeah, so this was the original picture, and you can see all of the flags are, well, the text is the correct way, so they did this on purpose. And then the flag is upside down, and then you can see they tweeted it out with the Ukrainian flag emoji, which has the proper color bars.
Dude, they could have just said that the flag was upside down because they was in distress.
Yeah.
All they had to say was the flag was upside down because they're in distress.
Yeah. So
it would have been a mistake.
This was the first tweet. And then they deleted that and put out this tweet, and you can see all of the ones in the foreground have this photoshopped box over top of them. And then you can still see in the background that there's a bunch that are still upside down. It's just and then they didn't even do a good job of so if you're going to paste a photoshopped version of it, can you at least make the color match? They still have the words don't match the bar color. And that color is too dark. You can see in the original that the color was a little bit lighter. Again, Ukraine's got a light blue, not a dark blue. So they put this really dark blue in there, and then the letters didn't match up with it anymore. Yeah, and you can see, you got the ones in the foreground here got it the right way with the Photoshop, and then you can see where it was photoshopped at, and then in the background they're still holding it upside down. And you have probably, how many people are in this picture? You've got maybe 20 or 30 people in that picture, all supposedly the teachers union, and they're all just sitting there like fucking idiots holding the flag upside down.
They're obviously stupid for not realizing the flag was upside down, but they could have gone with the reasonable explanation of, we're just saying it's in distress. But then trying to just flop it over half-assedly, only changing some of the flags with a really bad editing. Just shows are idiots.
I thought that's what they were going to do. I really thought that people covering this early, that they had it upside down. I thought that they were a little bit overextended, and I thought that the teachers union was going to come back with what you said and say, well, it's upside down because they're in distress. And then that's not the reason why they did it, because they put out this really bad Photoshop.
Now we know, confirmed, that they are just idiots.
Yeah, you could have pivoted. You could have had that's a really easy pivot, but they didn't. Alrighty.
Idiots.
You got anything else to say?
Yeah. So it is not heroic, brave, moral, bold to demand others to sacrifice for your cause. I think that just the wrap up for the whole Ukraine thing is, if you feel so morally driven that you think that someone should do something to right this wrong, well, you could be that someone. You could do something.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a unique war where you can go there, sanctioned by our government, sanctioned by the receiving government, to go there now and get a gun that will be provided to you, and you can go fight for Ukraine. All of these people, if they really stood with, like, so what's interesting about this is that the I stand with Ukraine is a lie now, because you literally could go stand with Ukraine. Again, previous wars, like in the Middle East, there wasn't this like ready path for you to do that unless you join the military. Right now there is. There's a really, really easy ready path. If you want to go stand with Ukraine, you absolutely can go stand with Ukraine. Go for it. And so this is hollow, and that's what I mean, where we've got to stop. Don't be scared to be called heartless. I think it needs to be made known. I don't care about Ukraine right now. Other people don't care about Ukraine right now. People who are claiming to care about Ukraine are just trying to emotionally manipulate you to get you to do something for them. These people clearly don't care about Ukraine because they can't be fucked to figure out what way the flag goes, and they aren't really standing with Ukraine when they absolutely 100% have the option to do so.
I bet you they would not do anything to support us if we were in need.
Well, I mean, they don't teach your kids. They teach not your kids.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Next story is COVID. COVID's over. Come on, man. It's Ukraine now. What are you talking about?
Right. COVID died when Ukraine happened.
Exactly. So you remember COVID. I don't. But you remember when the news told us that there was a conspiracy, that it was a conspiracy to claim that non-COVID deaths were also being included in the COVID death statistics to try to bolster the numbers much higher than what they would be naturally. That was a conspiracy.
Yes, I remember. Multiple states last year revised their death tallies down after they removed non-COVID related deaths from the COVID related death tallies.
Although New York and Michigan had to revise theirs up after they included nursing homes. Yeah, so multiple, as in dozens of states, reported their COVID numbers being counted incorrectly. Discounted, perhaps. It may be that they were that there was a political incentive to justify the lockdowns, or it could be because more death translated to more COVID funny money being printed for your hospital and state. Who knows? We know that it definitely wasn't a conspiracy. And this was said quite often, was that there was people who died of not COVID, but that were marked on their death certificate as dying of COVID. And then the hospital does get a reimbursement for that because of certain legislation that was passed.
Yes. Dies in a car accident, definitely caused by COVID. Well, at least we've learned, at least they've learned their lesson now, right? They clearly, by now, figured out how to only count people who died from COVID, right?
Yes. Where are we? I'm glad you asked, Dyer. This week, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention had to revise the total number of U.S. deaths down because they had included at least 72,277 deaths that were completely unrelated to COVID.
I guess they did not learn their lesson, because 72,277 is not an insignificant number. That's a lot of people. To be
fair, I mean, counting's pretty difficult. I mean, it's like up there with like calculus, and
it is very linear, so difficult, right?
Yes. So the death totals were changed downward from across the 26 states, including 416 pediatric deaths being removed from the count, the CDC said. That's right, COVID, which was already a statistically insignificant threat to children, was actually even less dangerous than what was previously speculated. And of the children that did die, many still had dramatically ridiculous comorbidities, like just, already on
average two. Average two.
Yeah, already on life support or having some kind of severe genetic illness or some kind of terminal illness, already having something before they got COVID. So again, they removed a bunch that they claim died of COVID. And then of the ones that still died, they all had these severe comorbidities that were not reflected in the CDC data for COVID deaths or added as some kind of way of padding out those numbers and saying, well, they didn't really die of COVID, or it was only a contributing factor, and otherwise healthy child would not be at the same risk factor. And so now that they've pulled even more of these deaths out of the pediatric statistics, the COVID death rate, the new COVID death rate for kids amounts to less than a rounding error, and it's possible that it's not existent at all. It's possible that the death rate for kids of COVID is 0 or a just error in reporting how they died. It's very, very low.
Let me put it into perspective for you. Children make up, that's below the age of 18, 90% of all COVID cases, but made up only 0.26% of the deaths, as is 1,341 children supposedly died, compared to the 965,000 adults. So it would seem like we have ample evidence that children were the least affected by COVID, supported by multiple studies showing that they had a very, very minute percent chance of death.
Yes. So this is apparently not enough evidence for the Biden administration, which is the first science-based administration, apparently. Jen Psaki...
They're gonna cure cancer one day.
Exactly. So even though the death statistics for children is essentially 0, Jen Psaki still had this to say this week. This is a clip from this week.
The president, 79 years old, president of the United States, were to get COVID, might be more serious than somebody in their 20s.
Well, we don't know that, but we also know that COVID impacts people of all ages and a range of. But when we take what we do here, Jen, is not exactly as you said. So I wouldn't agree with your description there. I would say we do take extra precautions.
So two points there. We do know that COVID affects people differently between 79-year-olds and 20-year-olds. And then also, Jen Psaki doesn't know how to use the word effect because she always says impact instead of effect. That's my two observations there. But yeah, so that's the as of this week, the White House line is that there is no difference between the age ranges of COVID. It affects everybody equally, which is just not true. Even like a little bit.
False.
It's like 99.992 or 998% true or false.
Yeah.
There
is a mountain of research and evidence showing that statement is not true and 0 evidence supporting it. So, I mean, the only conclusion I can come to is that she has no idea what she's talking about, or she's lying.
Yes.
So I'm sure you're wondering how the CDC could possibly still be counting non-COVID deaths after having already made that mistake multiple times. How many more times will they revise those numbers down? By the end of it, will there even be any numbers left? Well, according to the CDC, the counting of non-COVID related deaths was caused by an error in the counting algorithm. Now, you may be asking yourself, why do they need an algorithm to simply add COVID death numbers together? Well, the most obvious answer is that they are not just adding numbers together.
Yes. The fact that they require an algorithm to count the number of COVID deaths implies to me that they are not actually counting COVID deaths, but they are predicting how many deaths there would have been if they could count every person that died of COVID. There is some assumption that when you're counting things like these, when you're doing these broad population statistics, they are going to miss some of the people who would have had the thing that you're looking for, but just because it's impossible to sample, pull, and track data for every single person currently, that you're going to be missing some of them. So what you would do is you would say, we're going to test 1,000 people, and if 20% of them died of COVID, or we'll look at the last 1,000 deaths, and if 20% of them died of COVID, then we'll extrapolate that out to the whole country and say, maybe 3% of the deaths were because of COVID, because the algorithm took in these variables and processed them in such a way that it that's what the statistic is for the world, or the countrywide rate. Basically, it's imaginary. The CDC is apparently, based off of what they just said, based off of saying that they are using an algorithm, is telling us that the numbers that they're reporting are not real raw data numbers. These numbers were massaged to appear a certain way. Basically, they put their real count into a formula, and then they tweaked the formula until they got out of it the count that they were looking for. And the fact that they're modifying the algorithm, that tells you something. That obviously it can be manipulated. It can clearly be manipulated.
Yeah. How do you make an algorithm say someone who died in a car wreck really died from COVID? No, that's a user input. Like, someone has to just put a tally to this many people died from COVID, and then those numbers should be added together. That doesn't require an algorithm unless they're doing exactly what you're describing.
And I don't know if they're actually using an algorithm, but in this context, I would expect they're using a statistics equation, which is not, you typically wouldn't consider an equation to be an algorithm. There are a few processes that you need to go through, and the definition of algorithm can get a little loose, but it seems to me that they're just trying to use a big word to try to, snow job the whole thing. If they just said, well, we came up with this formula, and they posted a picture of the formula so that you too could also use that formula, then you would see, oh, it just says X times 1.5 equals COVID death rate. And you'd be like, that's not an algorithm. That's a lie.
Yeah, the only equation that would make sense is N1 plus N2 plus N3 and so forth equals answer.
Yeah, just a summation of ends.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Next story.
Yes. Last story. So, is Tucker Carlson Putin's son? Some say yes. Dyer
Story
says absolutely.
Absolutely. Confirmed. You heard it today on Direwolf Media.
Turning to another.
Is Tucker Carlson really a Russian cat paw? Yeah, you see that one coming.
Okay, so we got this clip saying that Tucker Carlson was caught amplifying Kremlin.
Oh my God, they caught him. Did they catch him hiding
He's
it?
going to jail now.
Yeah, did they catch him hiding it on his TV show that has higher ratings than literally any other news broadcast?
He was caught on that show that has more ratings than the video you're about to watch.
How did they find it? Oh my God.
Another important facet of this war, the information war, and what U.S. officials deride as Kremlin disinformation, which matters in the global stage. It matters over in the European theater, but it also matters right here at home because some of it is being echoed on Fox News. Russia called a UN Security Council meeting today to renew its allegations that it says the U.S. might be somehow funding bioweapons in Ukraine. Okay, and here's what you need to know.
Stop there.
Here's what you need to know is that the U.S. admitted that they were funding biolabs in the Ukraine that are researching things that would be not good for, like, here's how you disarm this, right, Dyer, is you take you could invite, because in theory we're not currently at war with Ukraine, or sorry, we're not currently at war with Russia. So what you could do is offer a diplomatic tour of all of our biolab sites and offer the Russians, hey, here is the data that we've been researching at these things. These are just how to clean corn the right way and how to test kale for salmonella. We think that these are useful, like, human science things that aren't dangerous. So here, Russia, here's a copy of all of the things that we've been researching in the Ukraine for biosecurity stuff. And here's a tour of our... That's how you would very quickly disarm this. But we're doing the opposite of disarming the Russian allegation. We are, in fact, confirming the Russian allegation by members of the State Department saying, well, we're pretty concerned that if Russia gets their hands on our, research into how to get salmonella off your kale, that, I don't know, they could somehow weaponize it. And if Russia was able to weaponize killing salmonella, man, we'd all be healthier.
So this video here made two claims. First, that that Tucker is claiming that the U.S. is funding bioweapons labs. That's what Russia said, and they're saying that Tucker is amplifying that message. So what we should be looking for is a clip of Tucker Carlson saying that the U.S. is funding bioweapons labs in Ukraine. Let's see what he actually said.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. If you had told us just 4 days ago that the Biden administration was funding secret biolabs in Ukraine, of all places, we would not have believed you. Yeah, I don't think we're going to put that on TV. No thanks. Then if you told us that not only did the administration fund these secret biolabs in Ukraine, but that they then failed to secure the deadly contents of those labs before the Russian invasion, an invasion they knew was coming, an invasion they helped encourage, if you had told us that 4 days ago, we'd have dismissed you as a nut. It was just too preposterous. We would not want anything to do with a story like that. There was no way it could be true. It's too far out.
So that's Tucker. That's Tucker parroting Putin talking points.
So we have one more clip starting at 15:34. Short one.
We now know that dangerous biological agents, whether you call them weapons or not, is completely irrelevant because they can be used as weapons. Is a gun a weapon? Not when you're quail hunting. When you're in a gunfight, it is. It's a ridiculous semantic debate. Dangerous biological agents remain, thanks to the Biden administration, unsecured in a chaotic war zone.
And that was, I believe, the spot in between those two clips was Tucker playing U.S. State Department representatives.
Right. So we're going to go why he said that. But what I want to point out is he's not saying that these are bioweapons labs. He did say that a biolab that has dangerous pathogens has contents that can be used as weapons, so the distinction is semantic. But the U.S. has been funding bio research labs in Ukraine, and that we failed to remove those dangerous pathogens. Now, why did he think this? What is the basis for his statement? Was it Russia or was it our own government?
Maybe because right-wing conspiracy nut, the Undersecretary of State, Victoria Nuland, that didn't jive, did it? Says Washington is working with Ukraine to prevent biological research facilities from falling into Russian hands. But don't take our word for it. Take her word for it.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
Yeah, and so this is the fault of the Ukrainians as much as it is ours, the Ukrainian-ons, that our State Department officials can't pronounce Ukrainians. So Ukraine should have told us no, you can't put labs here. And I like you said, Dyer, we're not going to have and we explained this on the show last show or the show before. You're never going to have a lab called the Bioweapons Research Lab. Just like we never had something called the Nuclear Weapons Research Lab. We have the Energy Department and we have Energy Research Labs. We don't have nuclear weapon research labs. We don't have bioweapons research labs. We call them biosurveillance labs or biodefense labs or just biolabs. The nukes, America's nuclear arsenal is still maintained by the Department of Energy, which the Department of Energy, yes, deals with nuclear energy, but why do they also deal with nuclear warheads? Because we don't have a Department of Nuclear Warheads, just like we don't have a Department of Biological Weapons. You're never going to call it a bioweapons lab. And so the media is taking this literal naming convention that the U.S. has of not calling things weapons labs and saying, well, it's not true that we have bioweapons labs in the Ukraine because they're not called bioweapons labs. Great. What do they do? to explain to me what it is that they do in these labs that has Victoria Nuland so concerned that the Russians might get their hands on it. If the Department of Energy was just dealing with safe nuclear reactor technology, would there really be a concern if somebody got access to that? No. The concern is that they can weaponize it, and that the Department of Energy, some of their labs, are working on nukes. And so the bioweapons lab, or the bio labs that we have, same thing. They might not necessarily be working on bioweapons, but they could be. And they're never going to name it that. And so the media will sit there and parrot regime talking points that these are not bioweapons labs because they're not named bioweapons labs. It's just like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden didn't name his company the Selling Joe Biden's Name for Influence, Inc. And so therefore, it wasn't selling Joe Biden's influence for money, Inc. Because it wasn't named that. If we could believe the naming conventions that people name things, the world would be a much different place. For instance, we have the Patriot Act. What does that do? It's not called the spy on the American people and destroy their all of their amendment rights. It's not called that. It's not called the Destroy the Constitution Act. It's called the Patriot Act. That's how we do stuff.
So the MSNBC can shut the fuck up. I'm tired of the gaslighting. All right, just like we knew that Hunter Biden's laptop was verified and real, but they told us it was a conspiracy and something we couldn't talk about. We were demonized for mentioning it. But then a year later, it was it was real all along. Yeah, we knew. Just like now, how long before the media is going to accept that these labs do and did exist, that America built 2 of them, upgraded most of them, that we have articles talking about how proud Obama was for helping to develop these labs that could study and contain dangerous pathogens and chemicals. Until it became politically not advantageous to mention, it was open information that is still available online. You can still go and see the evidence we discussed in the last show about these labs, how we know for sure that they do exist and they do have dangerous pathogens. It wouldn't make sense for them to not exist and not have dangerous pathogens if Victoria Nuland is worried about them and what might happen if the Russians get a hold of their contents. So they are claiming that that Tucker is spreading Russian disinformation because Tucker is saying the reality that Russia also is using as a cudgel to attack us. It's not our fault that you gave Russia a true thing that you are doing wrong with which to attack us. But I don't care about Russia. Russia's opinion does not sway us on our feelings about what our government is doing wrong.
Yes, I agree. And I don't even really have an issue with the U.S. having bioweapons research labs. Just don't put them next to Russia.
Don't put them in countries that are currently being invaded, have been getting invaded since 2014. You think it's a stable place to have labs?
We are... America is an adult civilization. I think that there's a lot of child civilizations around the world that are less advanced culturally and technologically. The U.S. is regressing in our ability to do those sorts of things, but we are an advanced culture, and I think it's perfectly fine if, as adults, an adult culture wants to research and experiment with some of these things, but you have to do it in a responsible way. There's a big difference between the U.S. experimenting with different applications for nuclear technology and Iran experimenting for different applications of nuclear technology. There's clearly a difference between the U.S. Well, there was clearly a difference between the U.S. experimenting with biological technologies and China experimenting with biological technologies. One of us was treating it like an adult, doing it carefully. The other one was experimenting on mice and then selling it in a wet market where people were eating them raw. So that is the issue. So I don't got an issue with us having bioweapons labs and researching that. But by God, you gotta be careful with that. And it is clear that our appointed class or elected class or whatever, or ruling dictators, they are no longer being careful. For whatever reason, they have become so brazen as to not do these things carefully and not give these dangerous technologies the respect that an advanced civilization should be giving them. They are, our leaders are becoming like a lot of the countries that shouldn't be able to handle this. And so maybe America's regressing in our ability to handle these things as well.
Yep. And I believe that was our last little story.
I have one little shout out.
Yeah.
So I don't know what exactly is going on, but Steven Crowder tomorrow on Monday is releasing some kind of video series on a recent undercover investigation that they did. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it's got something to do with fat acceptance and infiltrating the fat acceptance community. He released a small advertisement for it last week, and it has Steven Crowder fully, very convincingly decked out as a extremely plus-sized woman, and then getting into these organizations and talking with them. Now, he's alluded to this for about the last month, and they said that they've been working on getting these things compiled and edited and all that stuff. He said that they got really high up, and he really didn't want to say more until the videos were released. But he is releasing those videos on Monday, tomorrow, and I'm very excited about that, and I think it's going to be hilarious. And I encourage everybody to at least check out his channel tomorrow.
We should
afternoon.
do a watch party.
Yeah, we may do that. That I don't know what it's gonna be. I just know that the stinger of him getting dressed up and got all this makeup and the fat suit and all that stuff is very, very convincing as a fat woman. And then apparently he infiltrated this organization pretty deeply. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but I is that what you're into, Dyer? I highly recommend it. He usually does not disappoint on those things.
Yep. So my wife has made it very clear that she wants me to do some things right after the show. So we got to go. So we see you guys next week, maybe for a watch party later this week. Direwolf out.
All right, Trevize signing off. Thank you guys.